you doing?
I'm doing quite all right, actually. Looking forward to seeing the rest of the episode 8. It's getting very exciting.
All right, I have double checked. We are in fact live.
Yes, excellent.
And I'm just double checking
Excellent.
the audio real quick. Yeah, sounds all good. I'm going to mute that so I can come back to that if I want to check something. We've done tweets and we are live and we are about to start the show. Andrew, you've been away for a little bit. Nice to have you back.
Yeah.
How's it going? Well, you've immediately cut.
Now I'm back and we're gonna watch Arcane.
All right. A couple things we got to talk about at the top of the show. Andrew, you remember halfway through this series we had a little talk because Riot had doxed one of their players for no good fucking reason. And I don't know if
I
you
don't
remember
even
this.
remember that.
You
I
don't?
don't.
All right. Well,
Remind me what happened.
it's not directly related to this, but as a bit of a review, I'm not even sure I remember the details. I think there was some player, and he'd either broken some rule, like I think he did some stuff that was like TOS unfriendly. Like I think he was shit talking or something. I can't remember the details. But it doesn't really matter because they banned him, and for whatever reason, whether the ban's justified or not, I'm not going to comment. Not that important. The point is that they banned him. In the process of banning him, they doxed him, which is real messed up. We do not condone doxing here. We're very
I remember. I
yeah,
remember when we talked about this.
yes, and uh, and I feel particularly very strongly. Andrew, you can make your thoughts known, but I'm under the impression you are also very anti-doxing. Uh, and to the point where I considered briefly whether we were going to drop the show as a result of it. And ultimately, we didn't, for a number of reasons. One of the which, the one I stated, was that I was considering the show, since the show had it wasn't the same people, although they're both owned by the same company. The people who did the doxing were not the same people. Were not involved in the show remotely, so I didn't think it was a big deal to continue this. However, we're in another bit of a doxing situation.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you're familiar. You've been keeping up with the news, Andrew, with the Jackson
Oh, are
Films
you?
Sniper Wolf.
Yep. I'm just vaguely aware of it. Like, honestly, when it comes to that sort of thing, I'm just like, all right, you ludicrously successful people can deal with your own crap. I have no interest in watching either of your stuff, so enjoy. I don't know, maybe the Jackson's guy is interesting. I don't know what he's about. But
It's fine, but I mean, I don't think we don't have the anti-doxing position because we're we just don't want the people we like not being doxed. If we have the
yes, it's
anti-doxing
just a matter
position,
of.
you can't be doxing
Oh, sorry.
anybody.
Sorry, yeah, it sounded like super like, oh, screw them. No, I just meant like I literally just like didn't follow the news because I have no particular like I don't think I've ever I maybe seen like one or two videos of Sniper Wolf and I was like this is stupid.
Right, right. You're just not
And I
following
don't
the
know who the other
story.
guy is. Exactly.
Yeah. Um, the issue isn't so much we are not we are not featuring Sniper Wolf on this channel. That's something that will you can put in your bingo cards, but it's not going to happen ever. What would
Indeed.
I'm just imagining we have this 10-minute conversation about the placement of a color, and then and at the end it's Sniper Wolf, you got any thoughts? And he's like, yeah, that color's green. Like, thanks, buddy. Moving on to the next thing. She's not coming, and she would never want to come on. There would be no point, right? We're not big enough for it to be
Excellent.
worthwhile. But the issue is YouTube specifically has a TOS that prohibits doxing. which I think
Okay.
it's a fine TOS, right? Like I get a little butthurt about a number of the TOS decisions they make. I think doxing is a mighty fine line to be drawing. If we're going to be drawing lines in the sand, this is a pretty good place to draw them.
Yeah.
They've historically they've enforced it. If they've caught you doxing, you've been out. That's just how that works. However,
Yeah.
it's been like a couple, like I think it broke like right when you went on vacation. Uh, and it's still up. YouTube has not done anything, and so now I'm in the position where YouTube is sort of tacitly approving of uh of doxing.
Oh yeah, because they're not gonna freaking ban their like biggest one of their biggest creators, I guess.
Yeah. So now I'm sort of in the position of, okay, what are we going to do about YouTube? Are we going to stop streaming on YouTube now on account of this and this essentially
Oh
acceptable doxing standard now? And so I've thought about it a little bit. I haven't quite finished thinking about it, but we're going to continue it while I have a bit of a think about it, and give YouTube a little bit more time to make some sort of statement. Because to be fair, they have not come out and said, we are not going to touch our beloved Sniper Wolf. They've said nothing, which is very bad, but not quite as bad. So there's still time for them to make a reasonable decision. So in the
yeah.
meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to continue streaming on YouTube for the foreseeable future. Uh, and in addition to that, I'm going to put some more effort into building up alternative platforms as well. So, for example, people who follow Twitter may know that our primer review got taken down by
Yeah.
Sony Music. I didn't realize Sony fucking Music owned the rights to. And here's, you want to know what it was? It was that brief clip from Gurren Lagann that got us taken down.
Yeah. It wasn't even like the movie, like yeah, no one's gonna care about like using Primer. I mean the thing's free on YouTube, probably not even uploaded by anyone related to the owner,
Yeah, well,
the director.
everything, every claim we got, none of it was Primer. So no beef, no
Yeah.
beef with the guy who made Primer. It was always stuff like when we juxtaposed like with clips from other movies. So like I got a
Yeah.
couple for what's the Nolan one that about time
Is it
travel.
Tenet?
Yes,
Tenet probably.
Tenet we got banned in like a bunch of French islands.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, from the Tenet guys. And I'm like, this is
Wow.
this is literally like 8 islands in the middle of the Atlantic. I'm not. I don't care.
Dude,
Um,
you know how massive a percentage of like viewership targeting
a massive viewership targeting what?
it's over.
Okay. So
No, I didn't plan that at all. I had
well,
no intention of doing that.
but
But now if
basically,
I wanted to, it's not gonna happen anymore.
yeah. Basically, my position, what I've just done is, anytime I've gotten the copyright claim, I've just countered it, and then usually it's fine. And then on those two, the
Mm.
Tenant one for the French islands and the Gurren Lagann, they came back, and I essentially have to dox myself to these companies
Oh,
if I want to counter it, or hire a lawyer,
oh, gross.
which is like costs money,
Well,
and
yeah.
I don't want to do that. So what we're doing with Primer right now is I've opened up a BitChute account, and so
Mm.
I should probably include it in the
So,
description. I will
so
at some point.
the, the folks from the French islands will be able to at least watch it on there, right?
Well, everyone will have to watch it there or Vimeo. I've opened up a Vimeo as well, and the reason I've done that is not because it was basically because Vimeo has integration with websites. So, like, if I want to host a video on my website, I have to go through either YouTube or Vimeo. And so I've opened up a Vimeo so I can put stuff there, so that'll be available on my website. And I've opened up a BitChute. Right now, it's just for the videos. It does not convert live streams, so I will have to take those down and upload those manually, which I will at some point. But we are going to basically have a bunch of alternative places open so that we can put our videos and our live streams and stuff there. That way, if it gets shot down in one place, we have like 5 others ready to go. So that's, and then on top of that, it makes us sort of a bit less dependent on YouTube as well, right? If it is the case that I'm going to end up not doing YouTube anymore, having these alternatives like BitChute, or there's a few others I'm looking into. Having these alternatives gives us a place where we can still do the live streams, and it's not like it's just gone. So we might switch entirely to alternatives depending on how we feel in like a couple of weeks or whatnot. But yeah, that's sort of that's where we are right now. So for I guess the takeaway for anyone watching is you're going to have YouTube for at least a little while still, and I'm going to create a bunch of alternatives if you want to use those instead. And that's basically where we are on that. Second thing we got to talk about at the top of the show, card game, Castles TCG. We have entered the prototyping stage. We have gotten the first prototypes. We have examined them. And we are going to make some corrections, right? We're going to make some alterations. And we are then going to send those back, get a new group of prototypes. And if those ones look good and everything is, everything's kosher, we will then release. There's basically like 3 that needed to be done. There needed to be some altering with some of the artistic stuff, specifically borders. That's been fixed. Well, I've put a fix in. I have to wait for it to come back to see if it works well. The other thing is, whenever you do any sort of project, mistakes just slip through. It just happens with literally everything. So part of this was, now that I have like the physical cards, I double check them, see if there's any errors, and there were a few, right? There was a couple of icons. I think there was one icon that was wrong. And then there were some text on the cards that were from earlier variations that hadn't been updated or corrected. So those are got to get updated. And as well, when I went through art production phase, there's tons of budgetary concerns that come up and stuff gets cut. So by the time we got here, some of the cards had changed, some of the effects had changed, and the 2 decks had become a little unbalanced. And so I think it's important, given that they're the first 2 decks out, that they should be relatively balanced enough that one guy or one person can take one deck and the other person take a different deck, and you can still play together. So there's been a rebalancing effort, which I think has gone decently well. And then there was a couple cards that didn't really get the updates they kind of deserved. And so there's been some shuffling around of where some of the cards go. And there is a couple of cards that will have some more dynamic effects, right? Like, for example, the Nordgard card had just like a generic bonus. And when you have a set like mine, where like you don't have a ton of cards to work, like dynamic and interesting in a way. So some of these that were a little more generic and more passive, I'm trying to switch out for some more active and dynamic effects in the process of balancing these 2 decks. So that's where we are now. I'm going to try and finish up most of the edits today. And then we will look at doing second prototypes, ordering them sometime this week, I guess. Well, this week or next week, depending on where you are. It's Sunday where I am, so this week. If it's Saturday where you are, then next week. And then usually it takes a little bit of time for them to print and ship. So I'm expecting, if I do that, I'm hoping I'm going to get it sometime in November or maybe early December. And if those come back and everything looks good and after checking it all works out, we'll have a December release, just in time for Christmas, hopefully. So that's where we are with the card game. I also mentioned, I don't know if we have not talked about this on the show. Novella. We've had a conversation with, we've gotten an editor. He's gone through it. We had a conversation about it. Editing's being done. I'm looking at a December next year release date. Mainly because I want to release it maybe not December, but winter next year, definitely. It's a bit of an overestimate. I don't think I will need that much time, but I think it works thematically for that release, and it gives me some extra time in case things go a bit wrong. So that is where we are. All those things. Andrew, do you have any sort of announcements at the top of the show that you want to do before we get into Arcane? Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Anything you wanted to bring up before we start the show?
No, we can go ahead. Sorry if you probably asked me and I didn't hear you because
That's
it's
all
doing
good.
it. Yeah, it's always doing that thing where it cuts out for a long time for a bit. But usually it's just so happens that it's like okay, it's like in between. It's like during stuff, so I can be like, oh, okay, so I can like fill in the blanks of what we're talking about. It doesn't usually happen like at the end of something, but it just so happened that it was like at the end when you were asking me this time. Sorry.
Shit happens. Nothing's perfect. But Arcane, episode 8. I think this is the first time we've ever had to do a part 4. And I think it's because the
Think so?
later we get into the show, the more we have to talk about because we've had all this build up. So stuff gets more and more complex and whatnot. That's what I think's probably happening. So I imagine episode 9 is also going to be deviating from our part 1, part 2 sort of system. I imagine just the Jinx, Silco, and V in episode 9 is going to be a whole episode, maybe even 2. But
Quite possibly.
yeah, so let's do a bit of a recap. What's happened last? We did. I think last time we did Heimerdinger. We did Mel and Jace, which is one of my favorites. It is my favorite scene in terms of the positioning of how they framed the shot, and it's one of my favorite scenes because of that. Then we have Fi and Caitlyn go to the council. And Vi is once again engaged in hit first, ask questions later, sort of. And then we have Victor attempting to use the Hex Tech to fix himself up, despite the fact that he doesn't have any shimmer. And then he murders the girl who likes him. Well, murders might be a strong. He gets the girl who likes him killed.
Indeed.
Is there anything I forgot? Anything you want to add,
Thanks.
or should we just get started?
No, that's good for the recap, I think.
All right. Then, without any further ado, Arcane, episode 8, Oil and Water.
That's in there. Okay, so we just saw that
Yep.
the Victor scene. Yeah.
And so now we're on.
Is this Jace? Is Jace? Oh, right. Jace is
Yes.
building his hammer, which is interesting because it's like out of all your options, I don't know why a hammer would be your choice. I mean, we saw we saw the gauntlets, we saw the laser thing. I would build like a laser beam thing if I was him. I wouldn't build a hammer.
I'm trying to think. So Jace has to have a hammer because that's what they made him in the game. So we're working backwards from that conclusion. So, but they've put some effort into it, right? Like the reason in the story essentially would probably be his house talisman is a hammer, so he has like a sentimental, emotional connection to the hammer that's sort of trumping the sort of practical concerns, right?
Yeah. So does that tell us something about Jace, or is that just like that's just how it is?
Uh, there's probably also like if we're choosing a weapon for someone, from like an artistic design standpoint, the weapon should sort of say something about the character as well, right? If we give, uh, like what does the laser like? What does the laser really sort of say about? Well, so the laser is actually Victor's weapon. Spoiler alert going forward. This is what,
Yeah,
right. And so when we choose weapons, they're supposed to sort of represent the characters in some way because they're picking them for specific reasons. And so Jace having a hammer, right? Hammers are like we have war hammers, they are genuine weapons, but more importantly, they're tools and they're sort of manufacturing tools. So by giving Jace the hammer, we give him a weapon, but it also sort of represents uh the inventor within Jace, the hardworking uh engineering sort of industrialist that he is. And so the hammer's kind of, if we want to sort of represent that, the hammer's one of the better ones we can go with, right? I'm trying to think of really what is a more
I guess
representative.
like if you're gonna
And there's
I
also, I
feel
mean,
like
from like
yeah,
a in story perspective, there's probably also familiarity, right? Jace is going to be working with hammers most of the time, and so this is like something he's used before, albeit a different context, but a sort of instrument he'd be more comfortable with.
perhaps, but he hasn't used it to whack people with. He's used it to probably like like form iron or whatever he might have been doing.
Yeah,
But I
but
feel
from like
like
his perspective, right? He could be like, well, I can use this sort of this I don't know, like a sword or like a gun, and I have no experience like aiming a gun but I do have experience smashing a big hammer into like a sheet of metal. And I know human skulls are a lot less durable than titanium, so may as well go with that. And
yeah,
like to be fair, his hammer does have a gun on it, so I mean,
that is true. It does have the laser thing
yes.
to it, if I recall.
So he's combining
Yeah,
some stuff.
it's interesting. Yeah, because so I guess given that it's like okay, you make any weapon you want. You have like the ranged laser beam death ray, uh, thanks to the hex tech. So yeah, then it's like sure you use your house symbol, use the thing that represents you and stuff. That makes sense. Um, yeah, because it's not strictly speaking a melee weapon. I was just thinking like you have like an unlimited capacity. You don't make a melee weapon, right? Like especially because like you're aware of what like a laser is. You've made one.
Mhm.
So but yeah, given that it has a laser that like yeah, I mean
And there's also, right,
that makes
because
sense, I think.
as we
I don't know.
because we talk about like there's the laser is like dangerous and the gauntlets and whatnot. But the short point of those were that they were never intended to be used as weapons. And then people just took them and started using them as weapons, right? And Victor specifically is very against making any sort of weaponry. And so even on like at a bit of a subconscious level, Jace can kind of go, well, it's not really a weapon. It's just a hammer. And like we all like rationally sort of looking at it, we're like, not sure about that one, Chief. But usually, uh, if Jace is already sort of doing something that is going to upset Victor and sort of all and betrays the sort of principles that he's arguing for, there's probably like some subconscious element. It's like, how can we? What sort of basic grounds? What sort of argument, regardless of how good or bad is it, that we can make here in my mind to say, well, this is congruent with my positions and how I should be acting. And like it's weak, but it doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be good enough. And so there's probably like an element of that. Like I'm not really building a weapon. It's really just a sure it has some defensive features and can be used as a weapon, but it's just a hammer. So
Yeah.
that's part
I
of what
could
I think's
see
happening.
Jace making that sort of argument. Um, I hope that isn't what I hope that's not what thought is because like
Well, people sort
I
of
don't
just
know that
hate cognitive dissonance. So if he has to find some way to make it work in his brain, and this is one way.
yes.
This is just one way in which it could.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Generally goes on with Jace and him approaching his principles or using them or not using them. Um, which really, what a lot of his stuff is about is like what actually are his principles because he is kind of just trying to figure them out most of the time.
Hmm.
And he begins with some way of articulating them, but it's really the way that his actions play out is how they kind of get crystallized into something. Um, yeah, it's not entirely related to this, but this is kind of the beginning of that, I think. But anyways, yeah.
Okay. And then there's one other thing we skipped that I think might be a little interesting to talk about. This opening, this transition. As you know, big fan of Arcane's transitions. They're very good at it. But we have like this sort of this hex tech piece, which now is no longer like this is not tech anymore. This is some sort of biomancy. I don't know what this is, but I know it ain't Windows 64. Okay, that ain't the new RTX. That's some weird mystical mumbo jumbo magic shit.
Yep.
But the colors, right? We have this sort of purple color that is that's the sort of shimmer color as well. But we also have the blue around it. So there's like this nice sort of interplay of this sort of Zonite
Hmm.
and Hextech color scheme and these technologies,
Yeah,
right? But
good point.
it's a very dark scene, very like it's very dark purple, and then there's these like little patches of glowing light, and then we're going to go to the sort of exact inverse on the flip. It's very bright, very yellow would be the opposite color, right? Because blue and red is purple, and yellow is going to be the opposite, unless of course you're using the magenta cyan,
Oh
um,
gosh.
and even then it's magenta cyan yellow, right? So and then it's this like very bright scene with these small bits of darkness in it. So it's like the total inverse of each other in these two scenes in this transition. And so part of it, I think, is sort of this sort of attempted yin and yang sort of symbolism within this transition of sort of Victor and Jace, because they are
Yeah,
sort
it's a
of
good catch.
yeah, and they are sort of embodying very sort of different worldviews at this point, and they're very opposite, and they're both reasonable and they're both flawed, right? And it
Yeah,
makes
I think they're very much the kind of characters that like if they well, not to insinuate anything, but if they both survive during season 2, they I think they're going to be kind of on a path of like you guys have a chance to like be friends, but you have a very good chance to become enemies here.
mm-hmm. And then as well, like we could talk about why does why does Jace get the good side and Victor get the bad side, and because their stories mirror each other. Victor is doing his experiments and he's doing what he thinks is right. Though, to be fair, Jace right now is being altruistic, or at least attempting to be, whereas Victor's motivations are mostly egotistic, right? Jace,
Yeah.
for he's going around and he's going to fight, but the reason why is he's trying to help people, whereas Victor, on the other hand, his motivations now. He's breaking all these rules and doing these things that he also should really probably not be doing, but he's doing it because he wants to fix himself. And these aren't like unreasonable positions, right? But there's sort of a his Victor is helping himself right now, which as a cripple who's dying isn't unreasonable, but that's what he is doing. And Jace is trying to help other people, and as a result of Victor's attempts for his own benefit, he is now the last thing that has just happened is he's killed somebody. So Victor has now hit the worst possible position. He is in the darkness, and then we have
Yeah.
bits of light for which sort of are like are in sort of the yin represent the light side, like this sort of idea of this hope and good, like because there's still hope for Victor at this point. He's made these horrible a series of bad decisions, and it's all the consequences have come. He's lost someone he cares very much about. He's in the pit. He's in the deepest point, but there is still an element of a way for him to get out. And then how Jade, Zahn, and Piltover. This is going to be great. What could possibly go wrong? So this is at least from Jace's and Vi's perspective. After this scene, everything is going to start looking upward. Like we're going to fix this. Everything's going to be great. But hold on, there's some trickiness to this. There's something you might not catch. Something bad might happen. That's the darkness, which is going to be Jace killing a kid. Right within that sort of this war to stop this guy, the Silco, who is, this, at least from their perspective, this horrible drug dealing, murdering monster. There's this bit of darkness, what's the Nietzsche quote?
You stare into the abyss.
The abyss stares back, and do not stare too long at the monster, for you will become the monster, or something like that. Right? What is he going to become in this holy crusade against Silco? He's not really watching out for that, and so that's the sort of and since he's not, he might and he will fall into the sorts of traps that come with it, sort of the negative downsides that he's not thinking of. Right? I mean, contextually, like think about this as well. Silco threatens to kill kids at the beginning of the series, and everyone hates him for it. Well, not everyone, but most people hate him for it afterwards. Right? Because he's threatening to kill kids. He never directly. Well, he puts them into a situation where, as a result, they are killed.
Yeah.
As a part of his power struggle, and Jace, in some respect, has done the same thing. Right? There's a bit of a difference in that Silco intentionally did it, and Jace does not. But in some ways, he becomes the monster for a brief moment that he's trying to fight. And I think that's part of what causes him to. Well, we'll talk about when we get to that scene. But I think that's part of the big reason he ends up not going forward with this plan. But let's continue forward a bit.
Yeah, we'll get the setup to those decisions in the scene, I guess, with Vi.
Yeah.
Forging. Or not forging, but casting.
And also, colors, blue, yellow, or goldish yellow, and silver. Right? We have these sort of royal colors representative of Piltover. Whereas Victor's expedition or experiments are very much very dark, and you still have the blue, but it slowly shifts more and more to purple, which has sort of become a secondary color to the Zonites.
Yes. Well, that's the point. Like, you're not supposed to commit crimes.
Sure, but from Vi didn't actually commit any crimes.
Yeah, that's true,
Right.
but it's also like it's just an interesting like it makes sense for her to say it for sure, but it's an interesting like way that things played out. It's like a corrupt, evil, weak man put her in prison in order to avoid her being murdered by Silco. That man then went on to just die and like become irrelevant.
Mhm.
She went off to rot in prison for 7 years or whatever, however long it was. And then like meanwhile, it's like, well, yeah, that's not what's supposed to happen, but it did happen. How did this happen? How do we get here?
Well, clearly they didn't give her any sort of. I assume they didn't give her like a. Well, I assume there's not like a trial. You just put her in there,
Hmm, it's a good point. Like, what would have happened if she did go to court?
right? Like Jace. Uh, actually, this is an interesting question because Jace has a trial, right? We see that trial, and he's a.
Yes, yes.
And note, he committed one they're like a huge fucking violation with his magic usage, right? There's like a big ban on
Yeah.
it, and they exiled him, right? He didn't have to go to Stillwater. He never prison didn't or was at sort of no point did it seem on the. We'd have to probably go back and rewatch it. The possibility of Stillwater, but they exiled him, right? They didn't exile.
Yeah.
They didn't exile V. They didn't say okay, leave, right? And I mean, I assume I could be wrong, but if they're exiling, he might just go to the Undercity. That just might be where he goes if you get exiled. I don't really know
Mm,
because they don't have enforcers down there, right?
yeah.
Um, so it could be the case that because he's a Piltover citizen, he gets a trial. Because think about it this way, right?
Yikes.
When they put him on trial, it's not like in front of a panel of judges. It's in front of the council. And Vi goes to the council before this, and none of them recognize her, and she doesn't seem to recognize any of them. So it seems so. My sort of interpret how I would assume this occurred is the Marcus just had the unilateral authority to put people in prison. That's what it kind of seems like.
Dang.
Or potentially, it could be the case that uh, if you're part of a noble house, you get to go in front of the council. Right? That could be the case.
I think that's a lot more. I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
That would make more. It could also be that it's only like the council's the highest court, and because it was Jace dealing with magic, they bumped him to that one immediately because of the severity of it. And it could be there are just
Yeah,
lesser courts that deal with the day to day stuff, but because it was magic and so out of the ordinary, they brought him in.
yeah.
Uh, I get
And
we don't.
presumably you'd still have like some sort of court uh trial of some kind. Like I'd be completely willing to, given
Sorry.
what we know about Marcus and everything, like he probably just like paid a couple people and just said, "Hey, like keep this quiet. Like don't ask about this prisoner. Here's like I don't know $1,000 or however the hell much you
Yeah.
give someone for that." Um, and yeah, just keep her away from everyone.
Yeah. It could be. We don't. I guess we don't really have. Like, I think we can predict that she never this like that was her first time from the High Council, but I don't think we can really say much more.
Yeah.
And also we don't really know the conditions within Stillwater as well. Right? It could be like inside Stillwater is like the Stanford prison experiment. It's like actual like human rights abuses and shit going on in there. We don't have
Yeah.
like a ton of context. Uh, I think the only scenes we've seen in sort of Stillwater is Vi breaking one of the guy's jaws at lunchtime,
Yeah.
and then her
Yep.
hitting a wall in the dark. So we don't really have a lot of context for what she's saying.
This is true, and I'd be very interested in what I like genuinely. I am very curious now about what is the administration like of Stillwater? Like, how does it work? How does
Well,
their legal system work?
we do know because the like based on the interactions with the warden, it seems like they're just regularly beating the prisoners. Um,
Yes, he did. Yeah, that was said, wasn't it?
so it seems like if I were to put forward a guess, like a hypothesis, what's making the world a better place, and then her only interaction with Piltover is probably them stuffing her in a stone box where she gets like weekly beatings from prison guards and shit foods.
Hmm.
Though at this point she doesn't mention the beatings, but I think that's pretty. I think that's attributable to the fact that she, like, going around admitting that you got beaten up every day is not like an empowering position to have.
Yeah. I guess what I'm struggling with here, now that I'm kind of able to articulate a little bit better, is like I don't know what to critique because I don't know, or not necessarily even critique, I don't know what to have a discussion with because I don't know any of the context behind like who is usually going into Stillwater. Are these thieves and murderers? Are these like horrible people? Or is it super corrupt and Piltover is literally like, oh yes, so this is a criminal from the Undercity. Throw him in to get his weekly beating or whatever. Like what actually happens? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's like sure, like we don't in our time, sure, we obviously like we don't want people to get like beaten in prison every day and stuff. But like
Mm-hmm.
in the context of like the fictional setting, like you could be willing to be like, okay, this makes sense. Or putting in like I don't know, like gang members and like people who like kidnap children and try to feed them shimmer or whatever
Mm-hmm.
and beating them every day. It's like, okay, well, that's just how their prison works. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. But if it's like, oh yeah, a random urchin show
No, you cut out. A random merchant showed up. Hello, hello.
happened to be in a bad situation. Sorry, did I cut out?
Yeah, you cut out at a random urchin
Oh
showed
dang.
up.
Okay. Yeah, and they just like put her in prison and then so my conclusion is just like I don't know if it's just her random one-off like bad luck of being in that whole situation, or if it's like, well, what's the actual thing that I can say about whether it makes sense for them to lock people in prison and like not really wonder too much about it, I guess.
But in some ways, that's also Vi's point, right? She's saying, so you just put him in a box and don't think about it. And Jace can't respond, right? Like Jace, like if Jace was intimately familiar with the Stillwater system, right, and it was a good system, he's like, hold on a second, lady. We don't allow any sort of we get you high grade food. We do all this. He could start defending the system, but he doesn't offer any defense because he can't offer any defense because he knows about as much as the still. In fact, I would bet Chase knows less about the Stillwater prison system than we do, which is a problem
Hmm,
when he's the one in charge, and it's a problem when he's
interesting.
sending people there having no idea what's happening there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So just the sheer fact of like him not even knowing that points to kind of a bigger problem,
Right.
probably something that is happening in a lot of different areas of Piltover. Because it is an oligarchy, right? Like we do,
Yeah.
like that is what's going on. They do all have their own agendas. All the members
Mm-hmm.
have their own thing that they want to do.
You're doing this stuff. You send us there. You don't even consider. No idea what they're doing. I just know that you're in the way. Head on down to the prison. Go fuck yourself. Right. This plays into her views on people from Piltover. Right. And demonstrates really the big issue with the entirety of the because the reason we got here, let's not forget, is because all the fucking members were like doing their own thing and we're just not aware. Like Heimerdinger, for all of his virtues, when he goes down to the Undercity, he's like, I went to go and help because I thought that was something I could just do, and no, it turns out it's real shit down there, and not even I can do anything to help. And he leaves.
Yeah.
He gives up. He's there for like one day, and he's like, it's fucked beyond my abilities. I'm gone. And this just
Yeah.
happens on their watch. Like they have no idea about anything, right? They don't know. Literally their top guy. We have top men on it. We have top men on it. Is a fucking working for Silco. He's bought and paid for. He doesn't work for the council. He works for some other dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's the great Heimerdinger scene where he literally has his eyes closed listening to the music while all this corruption's going around in the background. This is Mel's mom's point.
That's true.
You have mom's.
That's a good point.
You've allowed the problems of your undercity to fester for too long. No, there were like 8 billion stops on this train to this location, and at no point did anyone get off and look around. This is sort of the innate criticism. Like, you did, at no point did you think, hey, maybe we should figure out what we should pull the Donald Trump. We're going to have a complete and total shutdown until we can figure out what the hell is going on. Like, no one ever thought for a moment, like, let's actually analyze what's happening here. Let's see if we can find any solutions. No. And like every time we've seen the council, like think of every time we've seen the council, have they ever been doing anything proactive for anyone ever? Like every time we've seen the council do anything, it's either they're proactively doing something for their own personal gain, or they're doing a reaction to something that's gone horribly wrong. Right? Either it's a trial for Jace, or the Hex Tech gets stolen. There's never any sort of like, let's look at the problems in our city. What's number one? All right, we have a bunch of Zonites who are unhappy. Why are they unhappy? What can we do to remedy this? How can we make our society more cohesive and coherent? There's sort of no plan. And in fact, the council has sort of been resistant, head in the sand to plans. This was Jace's big problem with the council. Like, I'm trying to help people, find ways to help people, and all you're doing is throwing up roadblocks. Right? Like, let's not forget, some of the Hex Tech is designed for the Zonites. Right? The gloves were for people in the Undercity doing mining to make, right? So it's, and then Jace's sort of big problem coming now is ever since the Hex Tech got stolen, everything he's been doing has been reactive. There's been no sort of proactive movement to do anything. So everyone's sort of just doing what's best for them and putting their head in the sand. All right, let's right, and notice that she asks him, you never think about what you would do, what happens to people when you do that. And he's like, yeah, I want to make Silco. He's just completely pivoted off this topic, not even addressing it. Just goes, oh, you said something Silco. And notice, I want this. I'm not addressing the thing you're upset about. I want this. Give me this. Me, please.
Based. Yeah.
Base Jace, like in Base Jace and Cringe V, can't work anything out. Oil and water. Always caring about other people. Base Jace does not care about others. Racist towards his best friend. Says will not build weapons. Proceeds to build weapons. Wants to avoid
based purely on nepotism versus or not, whatever, not nepotism, you know what I mean, getting just strung along, versus Vi climbs through the horrible situation she's in to rise above her whatever struggle.
All things peacefully, invades Zon.
It's definitely Vi.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Let's see how this deal works out. One thing Jace would never do is break any sort of rules ever. That's the one defining trait of Jace.
Absolutely. Well known for sticking to the rules.
Jace follows the rules. Talos, or whatever his last name is. But there is what do I want to say? So yeah, she comes in and she's like, "Fuck the council," because obviously Vi has no respect for the council. Like, what does she give a shit? The council were
Yeah.
never there, like stopping Silco. Why? So Silco
You
just
know
gets to
what
go
would've been
around
like
fighting people, and we don't. Like the council's
you know what would've
priorities
been
are.
it would have been like super based if Jace was just like, I am the council.
Yeah,
I'm like I'll make the decision. We're going to war.
uh, Vi, have you ever heard this tale of Principal Pelagius the Wise? No, it's not a story the Zonites will tell you. They say his
But I
back
guess
was
actually
so... or maybe it'd be the other way around. Jace, have you heard of Singe the Wise?
is him who like really goes through with he does kind of like start calling the shots and running, whether it's like the war now or like what he does afterwards with Silco.
Do you mean Singed? Or Jace?
No, Jace, like he does kind of take it upon himself, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe
Mhm.
I'm not explaining it properly.
No, I kind of get what you're saying. And then the other line I think is worth talking about is, "I'm not a vigilante. No, you're a victim," which is like a very passive aggressive, sarcastic comment. I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Um, I'm not entirely
How do
sure.
you reckon?
Well, because Vi is not going to consider Jace a victim. Right? He's literally the head of the government that's been oppressing her and all of her people, and has essentially been backing Silco through Marcus this entire time. Right?
Yeah, but it sounds like she is saying like, yeah, like you are a victim because you like whether that's been like, well, because you've been duped by this guy or
Um,
whatever else.
I mean, I don't think. I think the tone in the
Like she's
voice.
saying that like we're all affected, like because her like she does like she acknowledge like she's been warming up to Piltover at this point, right? And I think
Well, kind of. She
it
just
makes
has.
sense that
She literally just has the fight with Caitlyn, and says oil and water, Piltover and Zonites can't mix.
oh true.
Right, and so the way I'm thinking about I guess you could interpret it both ways. To my mind, the delivery is more sort of cutting than it is compassionate. Right? Like if I'm thinking about how that line would be delivered both ways. Right? Jace goes, "I'm not a vigilante." She goes, "No, you're a victim." Would be like the more sincere way. Whereas the way she delivers it is like, "I'm not a vigilante." No, you're a victim. Right? It's just, we can re-listen to it because maybe I'm just remembering it different in my head. But the way I hear it is, there's like a sort of a cuttingness in the voice. But let's re-listen to it, and maybe I'm just hearing it weirdly. To me it sounds like it's not an honest statement. It's she's sort of making fun of him a little bit.
It seems almost like she's trying to persuade him by saying that. But yeah, I'm struggling to piece it together. Honestly, I don't feel like she's trying to like taunt him
I
or
think
anything like that.
taunting might be a bit strong. I think
Yeah.
I think she's trying to convince him, but she's also like real annoyed with him, and
Hmm.
so there's sort of that interplay of emotions. Right? Because she's coming in hot, like she's mad at all these people, and then she comes in and is like, "Oh, you're just stuffing people in stone boxes, are you? You fucking asshole!" I want in.
Yeah.
And so probably, like, objectively, the best outcome for her and the thing she wants most is for Jace to agree. Um, but I think the victims probably. I think. I think part of it is she's choosing the words because they'll be like she's not going in on Jace and like shouting at him or having like a or getting mad at him because she wants him to come. But I think there's like a sort of there's probably a bit of bitterness in it, right? Because think about it from Vi's perspective as well. She's like an actual victim, right? She's an actual like they killed her parents. They backed the people who killed the rest of her second family. They threw her in a box for no goddamn reason for like 6 years. And they've just they bagged Silco and let everything go to shit. Like she's the one who's got the real victim claim here. And then, in order to justify how horribly they've treated the Zod Knights up to this point, right? Every time, like this is they're dangerous, right? Every time they're doing all these shitty things, it's always in the context of they're Zod Knights, they're dangerous, they're attacking us, and so we have to do these sorts of things, right? So there's kind of a pattern now of Piltover playing the victim to justify doing not great things to the Zod Knights. So I think that's sort of my interpretation of what that line is.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, let's see a bit more.
Well, something like those.
Yeah.
What was like? Is that literally what they used for mining? Vandra was a
No.
miner of some kind.
No, it's just some fancy brass knuckles he had, essentially.
Okay. I don't remember if he had any like mechanical component to them or not.
No, I don't think so. I think they were just like made him hit harder, you know.
Gotcha.
Because we see Vi use them in like episode 3, and there doesn't seem to be any mechanical components. So I think it's just like they're just gauntlets. I think.
Okay.
But I like what they did with the gauntlets, right? Have Jace invent them early in the series, and then foreshadow it with them being similar to Vander's. And then it comes, we're now finally here. She's gotten the gauntlets. I think the way they introduced and did the gauntlets were very good.
I agree.
Yeah. Also, I like how she just takes it, like she doesn't ask. Like that's well within character. She's just like, mine now. Okay. But part of it is like a good sort of litmus test, because if Jace was really opposed to this deal, he would have been like, "Hey, don't touch that. That's dangerous equipment. Get your hands out of it." So there's sort of a canary test here where she like slips it in as she's talking, and Jace doesn't say anything, and then she acted. Jace doesn't say anything. It's like, oh, okay, maybe he seems like he wants to come, right? So there's sort of a nonverbal testing of where people are. And then she just goes into the pitch. Like, let's go fight Silco. And literally, this is like the only card she has left to play. Oh, Caitlyn, my friend and girlfriend and love of my life, Caitlyn, whose only trusting friend is you, said that you, being the only person she would ever trust or care about. Like, right, she's like playing I know this person that you know, and we're close, and she's vouched for you. Are you going to disappoint her as well as me? Because obviously he doesn't care if like V's upset with her, or sorry, Vi's upset with her, but he does care about Caitlyn. At least we assume. Right? I don't see why not. So she's like pulling out.
For sure, we see that in the beginning.
Yeah, so she's pulling out the last card she has to play, and let's see if it's effective.
And how do you fund these facilities?
Yeah, but it's a great. I like how the dialogue is structured. Right? She brings up the Caitlyn the last like we have. He comes in and he's like against it on the glove, and he's like, "Oh, he's not stopping me." Oh, you know, this girl you really care about. She also said you would do this kind of thing. He's like, "Listen." And like, fuck this council. You don't care about the, and Jace doesn't care about the council. He'll just go against the council whenever it benefits him. He historically has. And he's like, well, you know, okay,
Mm.
maybe but we don't really have a good plan. He's like, oh no, I got a great plan. Here you go. Let me lay it out. And he's like, okay, right? We have step by step, slowly. Like he's giving these
Yeah,
like very small objections, and she's like, hold on, hold on. No, I can get
that
past
is
these,
true.
right?
She does do a good job of persuading him for sure.
Right, and mainly, it's not so much Vi's power of persuasion. It's that Jace wants to go do something. He just doesn't know what, and he needs some sort of excuse, some mental justification to go do it.
Yeah.
And so Vi's like, okay, I'll figure out how to provide that for you. Here you go. Supply and demand, baby. And then since he's on board, right? We've now he's well, the last few objections have been taken down, and he's like, okay, may as well, right?
Except, I think there is still one more objection, which is how the hell are you gonna find those facilities? Because I like those should be very secretive, right? Like,
Yeah, but
you'd
the
think, okay, if they did have them, then why not go after them to begin with? Like, there's no way they know where they are, or
uh
maybe like they do somehow because of Marcus.
well how I assume how I sort of took that's actually this is kind of an issue because like from Marcus's or not Marcus's from right, because all their information comes through Marcus, and Marcus isn't going to tell them stuff like that, right? And this plays into the theme of both this conversation and the sort of series as a whole. I guess not a theme, but this sort of thread in this conversation and the story as a whole of these people at the top. Like Piltover doesn't know anything about anything, right? They have no idea what's going down on in the Undercity. They have no idea about anything. Who built this? We have so many questions. We have no answers. It was the Firelights. Okay, so we know it's the Firelights who've stolen our hex. Like they know nothing. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Right? Which is why I assume he needs Vi and why he has to bring her along. Because Vi very quickly, at least when we saw, she probably doesn't know offhand where they are, but she probably has the connections in the Undercity to figure out where they are.
Hmm.
I assume Vi's
Well,
the
she would
one.
have had to have found out about them while she was down there, right? Because she's not going back down there for a while.
It could be right. She's doing information
And
gathering, and we've seen right. We didn't see the full extent of her information gathering.
yeah, and now I'm just trying to think back and try to remember generally in the context of like when she did do that information gathering, did she have the chance to find that information or not? She talked to
Well, we know.
the lady running the prostitute place.
What? So we
Um,
know that she knew about the shimmer part of the Undercity, where all like the homeless shimmer are at. Part of that's probably she hears like, right. She lived in prison with people for like a long period of time, some of whom were working with Silco. Though I don't think she talked to any of them. She might have. It might just be she took out the big dude because she had personal grievance with him. But she's probably heard some stuff, right? And even if she hadn't, right, we're talking like a big shimmer production facility. She probably knows like there's a handful of places that those could be. And yeah, I think we're supposed to take away that she's the one who knows the location, and that's why Jace is working with her. Whether she would know the location or not, I don't think there's anything like prohibitive of her knowing the location because she's specifically looking for information on Jinx and Silco for a while, and she seems to know new places that have appeared since she's been in prison.
yeah, no, I think come to think of it, I think we're good because She probably just would have come across that information simultaneously with when she came across the information about that other place that we see her go to, like that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think
Dang.
I mean, I don't think it would have been a bad thing if, like, when she's talking to the goblin lady who runs the brothel. I can't remember what race she is. I can't remember the name of it, but she looks a little bit like a goblin, you know. But like, I don't think it would have been a bad idea if, like, in the dialogue for that, they had set it up a little bit. So, like, instead of the whole Undercity's changed, so Shimmer's running rampant, Silco, and then she could have mentioned the kids too to set for Jace's. Silva's been pulling them off the streets, taking them down to the old can factory to have them pump out Shimmer, right? Like a line like that there, and then that sets up for this scene and sets up as well later for when Jace kills one of the kids. I don't think it would have been I think it would have been fine if they had added that, and I don't think it would have been too because it would be accomplishing like three. It would be a line like that would accomplish like here's what's happening. Here's a bit of exposition of what the city's like now that you're back, and it sets up two separate things. So I think it's it would have been a good idea to put something like that there. But you know, not the worst, not the worst thing I've ever seen a story do. All right, let's. I guess we're on the raid now. Are you ready, Andrew?
Yeah. Got an action scene.
Yes. I'm just a humble shimmer farmer, tending to my shimmer crops.
So presumably, does this mean that this is where they have that creature that creature that what's his name was working on? Singed?
Singe still has that creature, and we know because we've seen him when Victor's gone there.
Oh, true. Yes, you're right. So did they make more of them then?
I didn't want to bring it up because I wanted to make sure I got the line correctly. But I think after this site
It
gets
secretes
crashed,
from it, and
right? But I think from
sorry?
when this site gets crashed, they say that their shimmer production gets cut in half. But I might be misremembering the line, or misremembering something.
I do remember that actually. Come to think of it, that sounds right.
In which case, if they have cut it in half with one facility, that means there's like two facilities, or one big
Yeah.
facility and a bunch of smaller facilities. And like, we don't get to see a ton of the facility, so it wouldn't surprise me if the issue is we don't really know how shimmer is made. Like, we know it's probably derived from that creature, but when Singed is in Silco's abandoned can factory, right? He doesn't. Does he have the creature with him? I can't remember.
When? At the beginning?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Not that we see, because it's a big reveal in that episode with gosh, with Victor.
Yeah, if I were to sort of look at the sort of surrounding evidence, it seems like he got some sort of mutagen out of this creature. And then every time we see like a shimmer production facility, usually they have like at least in the early days, they have like those purple flower vines growing around it. And so if I were to put together a theory, a hypothesis, is that he used this creature to create this sort of mutagen, and then did some like genetic altering on some sort of plant species, or this sort of plant species got created as some sort of byproduct or something, and so they might be drawing from there. But every time we see it in this scene, it's going to be in tanks. So I'm guessing that at this point there's some sort of synthetic way to make it that we just don't have access to. We just don't know.
Gotcha.
I know. Let's keep an eye around the sort of facilities while we're watching the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Also, this scene, my big complaint with this scene is like the only complaint I've had, the only sort of I wouldn't say big, but the only like I think non nitpicky grievance I've had with the show, and that is the geography of this place is like super unclear. Like they're coming in by train. Does this mean they took like there's like a train that goes like where is this train system going? Is this like a train system for just the Undercity? Because the Undercity is not flat. It like goes up and down and through all this stuff. The Undercity is sort of like not a great place for a train system. I mean maybe you could do some sort of subsystem. I guess it could go up and down, but the Undercity is very, at least my understanding is it's like highly vertical. It's like actually dug into the underground to Piltover. That would kind of make sense, right? There tons of mining stuff is going on underneath, and then they're smuggling it up through, or then by taking the train system, they can transport all these sort of raw materials up into Piltover. But if that's the case, why are they smuggling out their shimmer using airships instead of on trains? Like this geography is very confusing to me, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe I can look
Mm.
up. They have like an art book now or something that gives you a map. But I'm still kind of confused as to how the logistics of these cities sort of fit together. Um, I mean, I guess it
I I think they just wanted it to be on a train in the scene.
maybe. Uh, but I feel like you probably should have more reasons than that. You should have like an
Absolutely.
understanding.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
And maybe like an art book will come out and they'll be like, this is the map of how this place works, and like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. And so maybe they thought about it, and we just, since we're not familiar with these places and they haven't really haven't shown very well how they sort of connect to each other. Uh, but I feel like we've done enough of these sort of scenes where we're analyzing the sort of 3D space of it that we can say that some of the spacing has been sort of there's more of an importance on the shot than there is the spacing, and so the spacing of everything of the Undercity and some scenes as well have been getting ignored a little bit. I don't think that's a reasonable claim given how many times we've had scenes where it's like, hold on, if we 3D model this in our heads, this doesn't make sense. But it's not a huge complaint. It doesn't ruin the show. I just wish it felt like they paid a bit more attention to this. And there's Jace.
Okay.
Everyone roughing up the kid.
Hmm. Oh, right. This does the yeah. Those guys
Yes,
just hang out there
right.
like half asleep for the most part until they're needed.
I
Because
mean,
I
yeah, I
figure if they're
guess.
like if they're junkies or whatever, like um we've seen guys who are really messed up by Shimmer, and presumably they might just be like what do you call like withdrawal, right? Like you put
Hmm.
people on this like withdrawal just to be like, yeah, you're gonna like suffer here, and then we'll like give you Shimmer once in a while, so you do what we want.
Well, I mean, so it's not a So when you quit drugs, there's
Hmm.
like a handful of ways you can do it. One is you just reduce drug intake over time. So like if you're like addicted to heroin, and you're doing 3 shots a day, you do like a little you the next day you do like a little bit less heroin. You get slowly weaned off it. That's one way you can do it. The other way is cold. One of the other ways is cold turkey, right? We just stop. You just stop taking the drugs, and then there's like upsides and downsides with both. With the weaning off, you're only, since it's so slow over a gradual period of time, and then you're still getting some drugs in your system. The withdrawal symptoms are a lot less, and so it's a lot less painful to do. But the downside of it is you're still doing drugs, and they're not good for you. And there's still like a higher risk that you will just start taking more, even though you're trying to wean off, because the drugs are addictive, right? Cold turkey, the drugs, you're not taking drugs anymore, which is good, but you have massive withdrawal symptoms, and they're very painful and they're difficult to deal with. This is part of what Jordan Peterson's problem was when he was getting off the benzos, was that he was having massive withdrawal symptoms. They had to take him to like a special clinic in Russia and strap him down and whatnot.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, and then one of the other ways you can do it is, which is what I think they're doing here, is that it's cold turkey. And I think this might be what they did for Jordan Peterson. You'd have to fact check me. I'm not confident in the assertion. But they would take you off the drugs and then put you in like a coma for the duration of the withdrawal symptoms. So you're just knocked out, sleeping through it. And then you wake up, the withdrawal symptoms are gone, and you're off the stuff. And so that might be what's happening here. They're like, we will give you an endless supply of these drugs, and every waking moment of your life will be you on these drugs. This is the rest of your life. You're just going to be high for the rest of your life, and all you have to do is fight for us when you're in like a superpowered state. And so all they do is they put them in, they give them the drugs, and then when they're no longer needed, they knock them out.
Dang.
Right? That could be it as well. Maybe it's like it could be like they do it in shifts, because we see like there's other guards who are not in here that are like guarding other places. So it might be the case that you have like on time and off time. So like you spend a week on the drugs defending places, and then you take the week off or something. And like whenever you're not in use as a guard, they knock you out because you're not needed, and they don't want you taking in more and more drugs because we don't want you to having an incident or whatnot, right? Those are sort of some of the ideas I could put forward to why it is the way it is.
Yeah, it's interesting, and this I think is a good amount of not giving us information, because it's very, dang, like this existence is not good. Whatever the hell is happening here. And it's like it gives you like a morbid intrigue.
Yeah.
I think it's a strong portrayal.
Yeah, and there's also a sense like they're not, or at least they're not people, and at least the higher ups don't see them as people. They see them as things, like actual, just living weapons.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's the question of, are they here by choice because they get the drugs if they do this?
Mm-hmm.
But probably not, because I mean,
I mean, they're
like,
probably all addicted.
yeah.
And once again, I just want to say, wonderful animation. Like if you look at the effects, right? I'm a big fan of how they're doing the effects, right? Like we've said this before. The
2D overlay.
Yeah, the 2D overlay stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love it.
And I think as
Yeah, and they
well,
even do like
it's a pretty cool smear frame. But I think part of what's cool about it, especially, is because it has that slight difference in style. It really pops out at you. And so every time we're seeing these like effects, they're like these very they're in the context of usually these violent things or this stuff like the shimmer, these sort of bad TM sort of things, and so it really highlights those in the scene, which I think is kind of a cool design choice.
yeah, and I was just gonna say that about that smear frame. It's really cool that like because those are 3D models, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool that they are still smearing that. You
Yeah,
don't that's a big thing that um from I don't know a whole lot about this, but from what I have heard, I think there is a certain or maybe there this used to be a thing of like people not being too excited about 3D animation because you couldn't do stuff like smear and squash and stretch as easily as just like drawing it the way you want to. Um, like you could do all these exaggerations and crazy stuff that you could do. And then with 3D models now you just got like a rig that you just bend the bones of and you can't just be like, okay, well how do I smear it now? Like it doesn't look how I want it to. And so it's interesting that here they're kind of able to get the advantages of everything and just do whatever the heck they want to do. That's
yeah.
great.
I remember I think I've told this story before, but there's this anime I watched, and they had two characters going at super speed. So they just I don't know if they drew it that way or they actually did do it this way, but they didn't use stuff like the smear frames or squashing or whatnot, and it just looked like someone
Mm.
had taken the anime and just put it on like double speeds.
Oh,
It's like it
no.
doesn't look fast; it just looks like I'm watching it fast, and it looked bad. And part
Mm.
of that is by using these sort of the stretching and squashing, you can exaggerate movement and convey sorts of speed and whatnot in it. And so I can see why in sort of a 3D model where you would just sort of, especially like early 3D where you would just speed it up. I can see why that would not look great. And then been having these sort of smears frames have the one, it has the benefit of having that exaggerated motion that has that sort of impact, but it also makes the by like a lot most of what we're seeing of these sorts of people are smear frames. And so if there's this sort of sense of like there's this sort of monstrous creature coming around that we can't really quite see, right? Which is one of the coolest oh whoopsie doopsie one of the coolest aspects of H.P. Lovecraft, my favorite author. H.P. Lovecraft says it's cosmic horror, only writes about creatures that you can't really describe. And so he has a way of writing in a sense like you get sort of this vague idea of what it kind of looks like, but you never really know what it looks like. And so and they sort of do a good job with that. And then you have like these brief flashes. Like here, we can see the sort of visor, and we see some sort of like needle arm and like a glowing shoulder, and then it's just darkness. We have like these brief flashes of light where we see this like sort of vague figure right before someone dies. And so I think that adds to the sort of tension of the scene.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, or we want to start smashing some pilties?
Yeah, let's have at it. Oh, also the lighting. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And then we have this sort of build up, and then the reveal, and they're coming out with these real janky motions. Uh,
Yep.
which you'll notice like they're like the jank is sort of a common feature in a lot of fiction. Like when you see horror movies and video games and shows, they have like these really janky the ghosts and ghouls and monsters and whatnot will have these janky motions. Even in my book, for the some of there's like a real focus on some of the characters being very janky, And I
Hmm.
think there's like an analysis. Like someone somewhere has studied why these are scary to us. And the I haven't actually gone and read any of the studies, but my understanding is what's happening is essentially the uncanny valley effect, but on like real people,
Yes.
right? And the idea
Yeah.
is that these people are moving in this very strange way that's inhuman, despite the fact that they're human. And so the brain sort of interprets that as there's something wrong with them. There's some sort of like
Yeah.
rabies or something. They are sick. They are fucked up, and we do not want to catch it. We do not want to be anywhere near this sort of thing because it is fucked up. We don't know why or how, but we know it's fucked up and it might be contagious or violent. Yeah, but it's not some sort of rational thinking person. It's sick or deranged or both. And so we
Yeah.
have them like killing all these people, and then we have this focus on them for like this moment, and he's coming out and he has this right, like even the movements as he's running towards them have these slight sudden shifts in direction. He's almost sort of teleporting a little bit. It adds to it, right? And right, just like
Yeah,
a
the shaking neck.
quick movement where you just like, ugh, I have no idea what's going on, and then he's gonna you want to 1v1 me, and we got the music coming in. And who's that? You can't really see her, but you see the red and the blue, and you kind of figure it out pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Right, and the effects are so cool.
They're very cool.
Right, and look, even the background, like he's not in the main shot, but if we step back a bit, he goes flying. Shimmer gets leaked everywhere. Right, even if you look at the background of the scene, like he doesn't even need to really be walking, like because we're not focused on it. But even look at how in the background, he's coming forward, and look at how he moves. He's got this like slight jank in his step, which was he's just a background character. You don't really need to focus on. Though I think the framing does do kind of a good job with it. Wait. It's just gonna be 20 minutes of her punching this dude on loop. The framing is actually kind of nice, right? We have her as the center of attention, makes sense. We have Jace here, who is the guy she's protecting, and then in the back where we have this nice. It's divided into thirds. A third is this guy, a third is her, and a third is Jace. And so yeah, I thought the framing was nice. And then we have him walking forward, and he has the slight jank. It's carrying over. All good work.
Wink. Oh, that was actually really cool too. The detail of her expression sequence.
Oh, like the wink and the smile.
Yeah, wink, tired, ready.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting, especially after like learning about animation and stuff. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. This
like
is.
that so much. That like it looks like a little bit like um what am I thinking of? Some sort of cartoon drawn sort of thing. I don't know why for some reason Howl's Moving Castle is coming to my mind, but I don't think that's quite right. Um but like her gauntlet like activating seemed like it was like 2D drawn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just neat. I like her. I
And
like what they do.
this is a great scene. Do we want to? Do you want to talk about the song, or do we want to do the actual scene first and then the song?
You probably have a lot more to say about the song, so I'm good either way. I'm happy to um I'm curious to know what you think about it.
All right, let's watch a little bit more, and then I'll just throw the song in when we've watched a little bit. And I don't have a ton to say.
Okay. Yeah, just thinking that you usually pay attention closely to what the songs are saying. I don't usually know a whole lot about them until you tell me about them.
Yeah, most of them, because all the music for the show was written for the show. They hired a bunch of people to do songs for the show, and so with the exception of the Imagine Dragons one, I think they all have some sort of they're all thematically linked to the particular scenes. So that's sort of why I like them. Um, Imagine Dragons, I think I like looked at it back and I found like some sort of minor connection. I think probably it's the weakest in terms of its thematic connections. But that's just me. To be fair, you know, Imagine Dragons has done a lot of work for Riot Games, putting songs up for they deserved a spot in here. And it's not a bad song. It's just I felt like of all of them, it was the only one that didn't put a ton of effort into trying to match it. I felt like it was just I felt like it was an Imagine Dragons song that they just put in the show, as opposed to a song being written for the show. Is sort of how I felt about it. And to be fair, like if we were to put those on like a list, this one and the next one, I think are probably next on the list. There's still some connections. And I think they're still trying. But I think like if we're talking about which ones are most connected, we're going to be talking about what are their names, Andrew? The Undercity ones.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
But the ones from the first 3 episodes, like Our Love, I think is pretty good. What's the Arcane track list? I can't remember the name now.
But I know what you're talking about. The one where like the first time you go down there, it's like
Yeah,
come and join
Animals,
the
Dirty
party or whatever
Animals, and I can't remember the first one. Welcome to the Underground or something like that.
yeah, the playground.
Yes.
Welcome to the playground, and then the second one is like they're like, yeah, we're all horrible now.
Yeah. Welcome to the Playground, Dirty Little Animals, Our Love. Uh, are probably like the most best thematically, I think. But for this scene, right when they're fighting, I like the hammer smash. I think it's hilarious and great. Right, they straight up pulled some Wile E. Coyote shit on this guy. He fucking electrocuted him with the bone structures. And then have these like wonderful like tiny shatters for like this brief moment. We get this like silhouette, and everything's like super fuzzy, because one, it's electricity, and two, it's moving very fast. And like we got the rib cage and everything. It's brilliant.
Hold on, I don't think you're paused on the same thing I'm paused on. Where are you? What frame are you on right now? Because I just see Jace, like a close up of his eye.
Okay, then we are on different ones.
Okay, I can just rejoin this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see if that will sort it out for me. All right. Once again, I am joining the party.
Yeah.
As you might think of.
Could also probably pull up the stream on an alternate.
Oh yeah, why didn't I think of that?
Well, I assume.
Well, okay, now I'm on the frame of we see Jace's back and he's just swinging the hammer and the blue is kind of swirling around.
Okay. Well, you know, you can both the stream if you
Is that
want.
where we're at?
Yeah, I think you're slightly
Oh,
behind. The part I have it paused on is like right when the hammer makes impact, and it has that flash where everything goes blue, right? Because blue is the color of electricity and Piltover. We got the double here, and they've pulled some Looney Tunes, some actual old school animation techniques where they've electrocuted them with the hammer, right? And it's the electricity's everywhere, and he's like shattering the skeleton, and it's like a really
Oh yes.
right, and it works. That's the best part about it. It works.
Yeah.
And then, like, even at the very last second, right before it breaks, all the pieces just shatter into like a billion different pieces, and it just explodes. And then he goes flying off. It's a great way to convey like the massive impact this hammer has just had on this guy. In a way that is
It also,
yeah.
I was just gonna say that like there's also a technical advantage to it, where you don't I don't know how big of an impact this is on the workload, but um, you're not deforming the mesh of like the character to have him like literally explode and presumably like have like mesh
Oh, I see what you're saying. So instead of like having all this 3D modeling work and this, they're just
effects for that.
painting over it in 2D, and they can just
Yeah.
that is smart. Feel bad for these guys. Just came into work on a Wednesday, and now we're playing them getting smashed to pieces over and over again.
Yeah, they were not instructed that they were going to be murdered today. It was not on the morning
Hey,
scrum.
and there it is again. He just smashed the
Oh wow,
kneecap.
yeah.
Don
Oh
Jace did
man,
not
it's
like your
so
gun.
like oh cool, he like popped the screen, the windshield, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
okay,
that
that is
jump
a
was
like a
kind of
really
fire.
solid hammer.
Yeah. And this jump
I
is
love that.
it just keeps blending these two very well.
What was that? Did they break? Did something pop off?
Oh yeah, she broke the swords. She went.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. I thought
Eh,
something broke off the gauntlet. I'm like, uh-oh.
no. She broke the sword, and
And that's interesting.
the choreography is really nice.
Oh yeah.
The oh we went back a bit too far, but just the jump, and the jump's nice. But
The
the part
spear.
I really like is right after she breaks the swords.
Yeah.
And yeah, though
Oh,
she is
flippin' punchy.
part of the thing is because I try to keep an eye out to see if if Vi is blocking. And my conclusion has been she sometimes blocks and she sometimes doesn't. Um, it's
He's
not
not blocking much.
well, like okay, if we go back, so
Like,
I would say
she's dodging more.
I'd say she has a tendency to try. Well, generally when you're fighting, you want to dodge, and if you can't dodge, you block. Right, so that's not a
Okay.
bad thing, right? And the reason's pretty simple. If you block, you have to absorb some degree of that strike into you somewhere. So like if
Hmm.
someone's punching you and you're just like doing like a middle block or something, you're still taking some of that kinetic energy is transporting into your arm. And so it's taking some small degree of damage. Whereas and so if you're doing like one of the things like I did sparring recently for my taekwondo class and there's lots of
Hmm.
kicks and I keep blocking the kicks and eventually if you block enough kicks, do enough low blocks with your kick, your arm goes, dude, this hurts a lot. Stop fucking blocking kicks with me, you asshole. Right? Because you're still getting hit. You're just getting hit in a preferable spot. Right? It's better to get hit in your
Hmm.
arm than it is to get hit in your head. This is why Muhammad Ali is the greatest of all time. Or let's be honest, the greatest of his sort of generation. Boxing and the meta changes and whatnot. But like float like a barfly, sting like a bee. If you see the boxing matches, the guy's just throwing hands at his head and he's just ducking. He just so he's just not he's super casually just swinging like just never hitting, just slightly missing him all the time, and then he hits him. So generally, you're supposed to dodge, and if you can't dodge, block. And then if you can't block, you're that's not good. So she is dodging and striking, but it'd be like when I'm looking, I'm trying to see if there are sort of opportunities where she should be blocking and isn't. And so if I look here, she's going to do like an overhead block. Oh, that's a bit too far, but too far forward. If I go back a bit.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, she totally is just yeah.
Okay, that wasn't far back enough, but you know what I'm talking. And so if you want to do a
In
thing,
this sequence, she's not, but that's just because she's got the upper hand at this point completely.
well, she's mainly she's striking. She's gained tempo.
Yeah.
Right, but if we look at, I'm trying to find the scene I'm thinking of. Let me sort of just pass. There goes the leg. There goes the guy.
Also, I guess they did make dismembered models as well. That's dedication.
Right, like all those
Yeah, and a bunch
those
of blocks there. Yeah.
right,
Yep.
and so, and I'm not saying what I would do if I were trying to convey this idea of she's never blocking. I would make it like a specific choreography design choice that she never blocks. This would be something I would do. And so
Yeah.
every time she's either only dodging, and like getting hit because she's not properly blocking. Like this is a choreography choice I would pick. And so like this is supposed to be your sort of big moments where she's doing really well. I would just have sticking with dodging and no sort of blocks. And then every other fight would be like she's dodging super well for most of it. And then there are going to be times where she should be blocking and doesn't, and she gets hit. And because you really want to convey this, because there's like a really cool analysis that if they had made this decision would be really cool later in I think the next episode. But I feel like she's blocking too much for that to work. And I think it's part of what I think it was probably intended. I think it would have been better if in the choreography for these fight scenes, she was not properly blocking, even if that means she's getting hit. In fact, it'd probably be better if she takes some hits because she's improperly blocking, right? I would think it would be better to sacrifice a little bit of like the coolness of the sort of the choreography for the characterization, because it will play out better when she fights Savika. But that's sort of just what I think.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And we'll talk about when we get to the Savika fight and why I think they should have done that.
Like we're really
right,
gonna
even at the
know
beginning of
whether or
that.
not by it.
Like watch right after she breaks the knives. He's going to attack her and she's going to block it. See? Immediately with the headshot and blocked it.
Yeah, true.
So I think in the choreography more should have been done to demonstrate like she doesn't block. But that's sort of just what I think. And to be fair, you know, not everyone works on different sorts of things, and so specific choices are made by different people. Like it's hard to have a completely unified, everyone on the same page exactly all the time.
Oh right, like the animators might have slightly different plans and choices that they make in the fight.
Right. And so
But is it really like, well, okay, I guess we'll get back to this in the Savika fight. I don't know if it's necessarily that she doesn't block, it's just that she is generally a reckless person. And maybe with Savika that sometimes like her anger got the better. Like I don't remember how the fight went by, to be honest. But okay, well anyways, I guess we'll talk about it when we get to it.
yeah.
There's a lot to say about it.
And here comes the gun.
Yes.
I think we're
Very
going to have a lot
good.
to say about
Very
this, so I'm
good.
going to talk about the music, I think, now.
All right.
So this track is called Snakes. And I think
Snakes.
yes, and I think the way to interpret it a little bit is so the issue with snake usually when we're talking about a snake, this is someone who's betraying someone, right? And so I think the way I would interpret it in relation to the series is that the snake in the song is meant to be Silco, and he's sort of betraying the Zonites to and this is sort of what's like. So half the song is like this, go get him, right? Like I wish I could knock your skull in and whatnot, right? It's like part of it is because it's a fight scene, and the song's about a lot of the wanting to fight and whatnot, and so that's part of the song, but part of it is sort of the sense of so like there's lines like know you'll crash and burn it, God knows you didn't earn it, my friend Karma's a bitch, she's got some lessons you'll learn, right? I think this is more like, it seems to me, especially given the context, this is Vi going after Silco. This song is like to some degree thematically is like Vi calling out Silco for the stuff he's done, right? Because Silco's like, I am Jesus Christ, savior of Zon. He's not quite that bad, but he's like, I'm doing this for Zon. I'm going to create this new world utopia for all of us. And she's like, look around at what you've turned this place into, right? You're crashing and burning it. It's terrible, right? And then there's a sense of karma, like you've done this horrible thing, and that's going to come back to you, right? And there's some great there's a couple of lines that I think have some fate. How's it taste? It's your own medicine, right? Shimmer is itself a kind of drug-like medicine that Silco has, in sort of a metaphorical way, prescribed to the Undercity to fix its ailments, right? It's oppressed and kept down, and his solution to that, his medicine, is the shimmer, right? Which is not good. It's like terrible. And that's sort of the other part of it. Like, how would you, like, because Silco doesn't take any shimmer. He doesn't touch the stuff. So that'd be a terrible idea. Right?
His
and
eye.
then, oh, that's right. He does. Shit, I forgot. But, actually, hold on.
Like he doesn't like consume it like as like a drug.
I mean, he consumes it
guess.
literally as like a medical drug.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's
But on the other hand, right? Notice it's never a pleasant experience when he does it. In fact, he can't do it anymore. He needs someone else to do it for him. So he's literally tasting his own medicine, and he's not liking it. You're right. I forgot about the eye. I was thinking like Silco isn't a junkie. You're like, no, he isn't. Oopsie doopsie.
Well, no, but I mean I think you're still pretty much on point
And then there's
in terms of.
It's about time we had a discussion about your sorry production, mask your shade and corruption, gritting teeth like seduction. Right? He's producing this horrible shimmer, and he's hiding like his shade and corruption, right? Because he's ultimately, we're going to find out he's going to betray all of Zon at the end. Right? Part of this is he has this sort of like to some degree, like Silco is he's probably not like Savika true believer, but I think probably what's happened with Silco is he was like a true believer, and then having Jinx as a daughter changed him. This is probably what's actually happening there. But Silco is sort of a character who hides in the dark, right? Even at the beginning of the series, he's hiding from Vander. In the latter half, he's hiding from for the middle part, he's hiding Jinx and Vi from each other. Like he's playing this sort of shadow. Oh, don't go towards your sister. Stay with, right? And he's trying to hide her. And so everyone's sort of hiding everything. He's hiding everything. And like he's obviously very like he's obviously has a high deal of corruption, right? He's selling out to some degree. Like we've seen the Underground City. He's sold out some Zonites for the dream. right? And his goals and his ambitions and whatnot. And then like there's lines do you feel no shame? Can you see my rage? You're a snake. And so yeah, the song feels like it's this call out of like Silco's out here saying he's the representative of Zaun. He's going to save Zaun. He's going to liberate Zaun. And the counter is, we've seen what you've turned Zaun into, and it's terrible. And the worst part is, right? Because we've gone from Vander Zaun, which wasn't great, but it wasn't this bad. For at least from Vi's perspective. And then we've gone to Silco, and it's worse. You've killed the guy previous in charge. You've took over, and despite all your rhetoric of you're going to make this a better place, you fucked it up. And do you have no shame in that? Like, no wonder people are angry. How could you have done it, right? You're a piece of shit. I'm gonna knock your skull. But yeah, that's sort of how I think the song takes sort of thematic or sort of the representation what the song is attempting to represent. That's my interpretation, anyway. You have any final thoughts on the song, or are we going to end this fight?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the song until now, so yeah, very cool. I'm good to continue.
All right, great, because this fight has been going super well so far. We're smashing the Silkites. We're destroying the production.
yeah.
I don't think. What, Andrew? Tell me, what could possibly go wrong?
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. I think we're in the home clear. See, he's just taking out all these bad guys.
Exactly. Having a cool laser means like nothing could possibly go wrong.
And yeah, and if that doesn't look like the face of someone who's deeply in control, you should open up the stream for this fucking face. This seems like a man who's this screaming crazed man looks like he's fully in control of everything. What could possibly occur? I think we've done it, Andrew. I think we have saved Piltover and destroyed Sauron, the Lord of the Rings. Oopsie doopsie.
Roasty toasty.
I believe. But so we have going into the fight, we have like that the screaming, the facial expression. He is become enthralled with the sort of the violence, the sort of berserker rage. Though probably not to that extent. Right? His face is there. He's like this angry, screaming, I'm gonna kill you all kind of face. And then, and that's kind of a nice touch. I just noticed that. Let's go back a second. Look at his eyes when he's shooting it. They flash.
Yeah.
For a moment.
True.
Right.
Yep, they are. Yeah, it's reflecting the light off the thing. That's really cool.
Yeah. And there's sort of there's like a visual medium that when you have like the glowing eyes, this is sort of like this sort of possession of something. And I think in this scene, Jace has become sort of possessed by the violence to some extent, right? This is the first time he's fighting, and he's shown up with an overwhelming advantage, and he's just crushing dudes. And then he's trying to hit this guy, and ends up hitting a kid instead. And like the immediate switch in like his facial expression when he just realizes what he's done. He had this anger, and then suddenly he just stops. He's taken aback, wide-eyed. Has to take in a breath, right? And the breathing switches from like this angry breathing to like a panicked breathing, right? It's a very good, very relatively quick shift in as he's realizing what has just occurred. He's processing it. He becomes more and more horrified at what he's just done.
Yep.
But to be fair, Andrew, look at him. He's standing up. I think he's blinking. I think. Right, he's breathing.
Gonna be okay.
He's gonna be fine. He's just passing out.
Oh.
I mean, I'm sure there's safety nets. Oh, guess not. He is just dead.
Yep.
Okay, so let's take a look at this here shimmer factory because we said we were going to. I think so. We have like the big the machine here with the big window. Then we have like the 2-3 small windows above it. But I think above this sort of central machine, there's like that brain looking thing, and I think that's organic. I think it's like
Oh
pumping
my gosh.
organically.
It literally is.
Let's take a quick look. Keep an eye out for it. Yeah,
Yep,
that's
it's
beating.
pumping. Gross.
Okay, so it is some sort of biochemical process that they're. So I'm guessing they just have facilities where they have sort of this mutated genetic creature thing derived from that the first creature's genome that they use in the production of. And actually, hold on. Now that I'm thinking back, it's not the flowers that come from the shimmer. The flowers were first, and they fed it to the salamander thing. And then it just shows up around the shimmer. So I'm guessing it was some process where there's some aspect of the flower that he evolved the salamander thing to be able to consume, and then he could extract that sort of thing, like butterflies eat milkweed to develop a poisonous body, right? Monarch butterflies do not produce poison on their own. They eat exclusively, and then that poison gets filtered into their system, and that's what makes them poisonous to eat. So, Andrew, I'm telling you right now, you need to stop eating the monarch butterflies. I know they got tasty wings. Let me introduce you to a buffalo. But so my headcanon now, my hypothesis is that it's kind of like a milkweed monarch situation. There's some chemical in the milkweed, in the shimmer flower, that Singed wanted to use, but was poisonous for human consumption. So he created, or at least bred, some sort of that salamander thing, so it could intake whatever chemical that was and neutralize it to become consumable for humans. And this would also explain why it has like a ton of bad side effects. So that's kind of my interpretation going forward. Any thoughts?
I think that's certainly plausible. That could be how it's done.
It could be. I guess we don't really know. And to be fair, I don't think we really need to know. We just need to know shimmer bad. Okay. Don't do shimmer. And that some sort of laboratory is needed to produce it. See? Told you it'd be fine.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked better is if, because like he gets shot with this thing, and then he's like kind of fine, and then he takes like this giant fall, and then he's fine, and then like if you're taking that high of a fall onto concrete, you don't have a head anymore. And I think it probably would have been better if he had just walked up to like this corpse with like this disintegrated head that's splattered all over the floor. But I could see how like maybe there's some age rating involved things that they couldn't do that for whatever reason. I don't know, but I think it's a little silly that that's what killed, like he's dying there. Like the fall should have killed him first. But the expressions from Jace are pretty great, right? We have him walking in, and like he looks depressed and a little like, Jesus Christ, what have we done here? And then he sees, and we have that shift to like this horrified look. And then we have, what's great is this, if you look at the eyes for these scenes, they have this this shimmering quality that really hammers home like Oh my god. I have made a serious and continuous lapse in judgment.
Hmm.
And then he looks around. Listen, you gotta understand, their tiny hands are perfect for shimmer production, okay? They eat half as much, you can
Dang.
pay them half as much.
Dang.
Just having this like, what the fuck am I doing? And then we have our final scene. Caitlyn shower scene. And there's sort of a pseudo, remember the word we learned for this, pathetic fallacy. Right? The rain
Yes.
is supposed to
I like the
represent
fallacy.
the sadness, and then we don't have actual rain, but we have the shower that's sort of mimicking rain. And we've put this scene because it represents Caitlyn's emotion, but also mimicking Jace's emotion. And also, like, there's all like a metaphorical nakedness, right? She's like actually naked, but also she was vulnerable with the as like a metaphorical nudity. Like she put her heart on the line for Vi and asked her to stay and asked her to work together, and Vi basically dumped her. And then we have this sort of reminiscence that she's out here taking wounds for Vi, and then she just left. And then it's also the metaphor of she's emotionally hurt, but she's also physically hurt as well. And then we rewind. Though actually, hold on a second. I think we got a color thing here too. I think that shower. Now I'm partially colorblind, Andrew, if you remember, but I think this shower's green. Are you seeing green, or is just my colorblind fucking with me?
There's some green. There's some green to the water and things like that, but not a whole lot of green to it.
Right, which could be like from a color perspective, representative of Vi is now going away. She's disappearing and fading from her life. Like the green, she's like surrounded by green. Like her thoughts are surrounded by about Vi, and Vi has now disappeared. She's sort of fading from her life. I'm thinking of you. Well, she's had a nice shower. She's had time to think about it. Now it'll be a sad few days, but she'll get over it and she'll be perfectly fine. Isn't that right, Andrew?
Absolutely.
Oh, did she write a message to herself on the wall? Oh no. Oh no.
You don't want to be seeing that.
Yeah, and she
Oh,
knows
I'm
exactly
seeing
what that
that.
means. Like, wait, hold on. And then actually, hold on. This
The
is the
moment
first.
Caitlin saw the monkey, she knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because we've been over this super long. Yeah, no. This was the episode where. But yeah, we haven't seen what's Jinx up to. We haven't heard from her in a while. Right, and the facial expressions here are great. Right, he comes back and sees it, and like me, like wait, what? Confusion, but like a horrified confusion because she knows the person who makes this is dangerous. Like, what's going on? And then,
Well, she's gonna know that she's here.
well, I
Yeah,
think,
that's when I think she starts to realize that she's here. She must be here.
yeah, because she's like, what? Why would this be here? This is sort of horrifying. Who would put this here? And I think she's just figured out who it could be, right? She has like this
Just like she thinks
I
about it,
love
she
how
goes, yeah.
Jinx just spawns in the background.
Yeah, like the steam disappears and she's there, and she's got the glowing shimmer eye,
Yeah.
right? Which, right, is right. Who else has the one fucked up eye? Silco. Right, we have a bit of a mirroring here. So and so we have what I think is done great the last 2 episodes is Jinx just straight up disappears. And we don't know what she's thinking, we don't know what she's doing, we just get some glimpses. And as she realizes it, I like how as she starts to realize Jinx is definitely here, the fog starts fading a bit. Like this is her starting to realize it, and we can just barely see the outline of Jinx.
Yep.
And the more she realizes it, and as soon as she comes to the oh dear, the eye glows up, and then the sun, and it ends.
And the first time I watched it, I did not see Jinx there.
Why I've rewatched it so many times. So there's so many little details you miss.
Yeah. Oh, it's replaying for me. Is it replaying for you?
No, it's just gone to episode 9.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, that's what.
But
Yeah, that's really cool. And hey, we finished an episode.
we did. And actually, do we have a release date for Arcane yet?
I don't think so.
Let me quickly check the Gazoogle.
So cool. Excellent.
That was a real website. They Snoop Dogified the Google. Arcane season 2. Because I thought they said oh no. 8 hours ago, MSN, is Arcane season 2 being cancelled?
Oh no. Sorry, what?
Okay. Winter 2024 is what I'm seeing.
Okay, so I guess in like a year.
Yeah, literally, almost literally. We will probably. Are you going on vacation again anytime soon, or you want to be here for the next few weeks?
I'm gonna be around for a while. I'm going on vacation for a month in December,
Okay.
but there's quite a few weeks I'll be here, so we'll finish it probably.
Yeah, I think, because that means we have like the entirety of November, right? So even if it's like a 4-parter,
Yes.
like this one is, we will finish it before December, and then we'll have a year before the next Arcane series. And that's now. I will be really disappointed, and it probably won't be worth covering. Maybe if it's like really dog shit, it might be worth it. But if it turns to like something mediocre, I don't know. Unfortunately, this happens sometimes. Like you have these shows that are like that people don't really see going anywhere, or like they barely get accepted a season in, and then that season's like a passion project for all the people who worked really hard to get that show, and then they release it, and because of that, it's so good that it becomes popular, and then by virtue of it being popular, all the people, all like the corporate fucking bugmen or whatever, who fucking wouldn't have supported it in the first place. Yeah, they pounce on it and they're like, this could be a real moneymaker. No, we have to take
show up like, Georgie, baby, you did it. I always believed in you. Now let's talk about season 2.
Let's talk about season 2. Where are we on the merchandising? That's the real important part of this. The merchandising. Well, actually, we also want more representation. For the second season, could we just make Jinx black? She's like already a character. Can we just make her black? No, not
mid-season
really.
retcon.
Right, but they come in and they like they're more concerned. They start doing things from like a business perspective as opposed to an artistic perspective, and you lose quality.
For sure.
And I mean, to be fair, right, we haven't seen any indications. At least I haven't seen any indications so far that will happen. Right, and I hold out hope. But you know, as they say, hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Yes, for sure. That's what I'm really hoping for doesn't happen to Andor, because Andor, like, it's insane that Andor even exists. First of all, like this one really good show amidst like a sea of like utter sewage.
Mhm.
Um, and
Especially
then
Star Wars
it didn't.
nowadays.
Yeah, yeah, and it didn't do too well, which probably just means that they're gonna cancel it. But like, what if they don't cancel? I mean, well, first of all, I don't want them to cancel. I want a season two. It's not finished. It's not a finished story. But also, uh, you get like if they do screw it up in the next season, like I don't know. I don't know how this one thing just stands out among like all of the Disney Plus garbage.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like some problems are like from these studios, but I think like a huge problem as well is what people are consuming, right? Like if you look at what people are choosing like a sort of a great example is printers. You notice how like printers when you go and buy them have all these like absurd fucking like you now have to do it like a subscription plan for ink and like all this different like all this scammy bullshit. And the reason why they do all these weird fucking scammy shit where people will get like printers because they didn't buy like a monthly subscription of ink or whatever. Like I remember there was one story where a guy bought a printer and then he bought ink for his printer from the same company. And then he tried to print stuff. But the computer had like with its internet connection had said you haven't bought ink in over a year. So you can't print from this printer. You have to go buy more ink. And he said, I'm full of ink. I haven't used the ink that I bought last year. And he said, we don't care. You're not allowed. It will physically work. There's nothing stopping us from printing. But we want you to buy more ink.
Oh,
Right? Like,
gross.
right. It is super gross. But, right, Louis Rosman made what I thought was a pretty good point about it, where he's like, I made two companies. One that sold cheap printers and one that sold nicer printers. Or no, they're both the printers, but he sold one at a premium, and the reason why was if you bought that printer, you got like a ton of benefits with it. So like eternal, like a large warranty. I think the printer might have been of better quality as well. Repair stuff, like a ton of stuff. Like it was a big package deal. And he found that the company that produced the cheap printer did fine, and the store page if he had the other sort of company he made no sales. No one bought it because what was happening was they would just go on Amazon, sort printer by cheapest, and buy the cheapest one. And so companies are going to try and sell their printers cheaper and cheaper. And so you get these sorts of situations where like, okay, let's undersell, right? We can build a printer for let's say $100. And our competitors and everyone can do that. The lowest we can possibly sell while making any sort of profit is like $100.01. And so companies go, well, okay, I will sell you the printer for $90. And then I'll put in all those sorts of this gross scammy stuff in order to make that money back. I'll sell you the printer at a loss. And then people are like, well, this one's $90, so I'm going to buy it over the $100 ones, even though it has all this gross scammy shit. And so the other company says, well, either we do this gross scammy shit too, or we go out of business.
Gotcha.
Right? And I think the same thing is true with like a lot of the with film and all these sorts of general like artistic mass market artistic consumer productions, right? Like I remember when we saw, what was it, the new Blade Runner movie. Did we see that together?
I feel like we did.
We did, and like
I think so.
like I'll hear a lot of complaints that it's not as good as the original, and fair enough. The original is a masterpiece. It's very hard to live up to, but it was definitely one of the more interesting films that was out, and no one went and saw it. It was like impossible to get them to do, and then no one went and saw it, and it did it lost like a ton of money. Like the same sort of like a lot of the like if you look at what movies people are going to, it's
Like-
stuff like Marvel movies and
Yeah, and like you have people like like the biggest Star Wars influencers being like, yeah, Andor was pretty good, but like they didn't really understand what Star Wars is about. Meanwhile, what they think Star Wars is about, and you'll see like Ahsoka, where it's like, oh, Hayden Christensen is back. Oh, look, he's flickering as Darth Vader. That means it's meaningful. Like friggin' like, no, you could have had a good show with friggin' Hayden Christensen, fine, but that's not what you're doing. You're just having him like say, I don't know, teach her like some nonsense lesson that doesn't matter, and it's like, please clap. Please remember this. Please remember that you once enjoyed a thing that you liked.
yeah. I
Yeah.
just I look
I'm
at
salty about this.
yeah. It seems to me that like a lot of the it seems like a lot of people go and watch like a lot of the sort of there's some big like we don't really do. I don't see a lot talked about sort of more artsy films or like more interesting sort of a lot sort of it just feels like there's a lot of these sort of mass market style blockbusters that people are designed for maximum consumer common denominator sort of potential, and we don't get to see, right. This is like if we're comparing like there's the big meme of comparing DC movies to Marvel movies, and I think it's probably good. It's very accessible to like lots of people. I think if I probably start talking about like Nicholas Winding Refn, my favorite director, anyone watching is like I probably maybe they've seen Drive, right? But this is why like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think has probably been a lot more successful than the DC one. And to be fair, most of the DC stuff is not very good. But part of my problem, it feels like a lot of the Marvel stuff I've sort of seen is all sort of very similar to each other. It maintains the same sort of comedic sensibilities. It maintains the same sorts of both cinematic and sort of literary frameworks. Whereas,
Yeah, it is very sludgy, as they say.
right? Whereas DC, on the other hand, had no plan like ever, and we're just throwing shit at the wall. And then they tried.
Yep.
Right, literally the worst things that DC did was when they were trying to copy Marvel. Right? If I think of
Yeah.
right, like if I compare
Interesting.
like let's talk like post sort of the beginning of the MCU, right? Which is probably I think we're probably going to be starting with like something like Iron Man or something, right?
Iron Man 1 would have been the first one.
Right? If I try to think of what the worst movies are from those two companies from that era going forward, the worst ones are going to be from DC, I think.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Like
I'm saying if we
from
take all the Marvel
that
movies
year when Iron Man came out.
I'm saying all the Marvel movies made from Iron Man 1 and after. If we take all of those and put them in a category, and then take every DC movie made after Iron Man 1 and put them in a category. If I try to pull out which movies are the worst, they're probably DC. But if I try to figure out which movies are the best, like if I try to think what the best sort of Marvel or DC movie is post Iron Man, it's probably Joker. Right? And it's also the one that's the least like any of the others. It's like it's not even a superhero movie. Right?
Have you seen the newer Suicide Squad movie that was like had nothing to do with the original one?
I did not. I think the last Marvel movie I saw was the one with the time travel.
Actually, the Suicide Squad one was
Oh,
DC.
that's right. No, I saw the first one and I didn't,
Yeah.
and I hated it so much.
Yeah.
And it might be good. Well,
Makes sense.
I mean, you've seen both. Which one do you think is better?
I haven't seen either. I've just heard people say that like on EFAP when they covered
Well, you have
they
seen
covered
Joker.
the new one. Sorry, I have seen Joker, yes. I'm well like I don't know. I don't know. I think I maybe told you how I feel about Joker. I think Joker is a very good movie that I hate.
Films like art that is. I think arts can be. I think you can dislike art and the art still be good, and I think it can be good
Yeah.
because you dislike it. Which is what I think. Like Ryan Johnson from his sort of interviews is what Ryan Johnson's big misunderstanding is. Because he says, like, if I come out of a theater and half the people like it and half the people don't like it, I think it's a good movie. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that is too simplistic. You're not, no, that's not how that works.
It doesn't work out.
If half your people
just
like the
means-
movie and half your people dislike the movie, you have a mediocre movie at best.
Yeah. And that probably means that you have a bad movie actually because who are those half? Like usually people who how do you put it? Like usually like the amount of people who watch a movie and like really think hard about whether they think it's good or not, uh it's usually not the biggest percentage of the people. Usually the biggest percentage is like I'm just passively kind of watching it and I'll be like meh or it was okay. And so if half of the people come out of the theater already then knowing that they don't like it, you have a bad movie because that shouldn't happen when people come out of the theater.
Right? And I think there is it'd probably be difficult to like put together an actual framework for how you would figure it out. But I think your statement is kind of what we're actually sort of talking about. We're like, I didn't. It was a good movie, and I imagine if you were to talk about, it, you're like there were these good, and there was parts of it that seemed meaningful and all these different things, but I didn't like it for these various reasons. Right? You can have, but there's sort of an acknowledgement there that there was, like, they weren't just. It wasn't bad because they were like showed up and half-assed it or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
There's like an
Yes, it's I'm very much aware of like it's just because I feel like I don't understand the message the way that the movie is trying to have it understood, or just like I don't know if it necessarily resonated with me, but like from the perspective like the portrayal of the characters and like the decisions made by characters, all that sort of stuff, I can be like, yeah, like this is very believable. This is very um there like it's impactful. It's like, well, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to think about.
Yeah. As well, like I'm trying to think of like movies that I didn't like, but I thought were good. Taxi Driver, probably. Like I felt I Taxi Driver was a bit too. I wasn't a big fan of it. It felt like it felt a bit too slow. Um, but it's like a good movie, and like I I think a lot of production nowadays. I think there's probably a couple different ways we could now analyze this. Like there's probably some degree of consumerability in my like book covers. I complain about them all the time. I hate modern book covers.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason we have the guy who decides what cover goes on the book is the marketing guy, and he's like, we've done the tests. This is what's marketable. And so,
Yeah.
as well, I feel like I don't know, someone said something. I think Destiny said something on a show recently that I've been thinking about a lot. Where he's talking about some of the some of the people who used to work on Adult Swim talking about the importance of like time slotting to get people to watch certain things. And he made an assertion that I've been thinking about lately, where he said, I think if you gave people the choice, they would just rewatch The Office infinitely and never consume anything new.
Hmm?
And I don't know quite.
I don't think that's true at all.
I don't know quite how I feel about that. I think that position.
Well, what do you mean if you gave people the choice? They have the choice.
Well, so
what's the framework here of the context that would happen?
right. So how I think I have a less extreme position right now than what but he's saying essentially like if we open up Netflix and when you go on Netflix, instead of watching new stuff, people would prefer to watch old stuff that they've seen before and they really like, or like most people feel that way. And I don't think I agree with him there, but I think I would agree with a lesser extreme version, where it's people, I for various reasons, it's not a genre I've ever really had an interest in. So generally, if I see a mech show that comes out, I skip it. I don't even bother looking into it. But if I think of if I were to put a list of the greatest anime of all time, I would have to put in my top 5 2 mech animes. About almost half of my top 5 would be mech animes, despite my hesitance and resistance to watch mech shows. And so I think there is sort of this, like, maybe if instead of dismissing some of these shows because they're mechs, I went and watched them, it would turn out that these would actually be fantastic shows that were super meaningful to me, and I would be super happy I watched it. But because of some of these, because of this sort of generic label I've given it, I've missed out on these experiences. And I think this is probably a more accurate analysis of how people consume art. Whereas, so instead of going out and watching like an artsy movie, like a weird artsy film, that Marvel movie, right? This is why foreign films were real difficult. Why we're only seeing like foreign films getting traction in sort of the mainstream now, because it's in a different language. It's a foreign film. I don't want to watch it. I'm just going to go watch an English film. And if you do that, you miss out on like phenomenal films like Old Boy. Right? So I think part of the problem is that when people sort of when at the consumer level, when people are engaging with art, they're not, or they're hesitant, might be the better word, to sort of engage with any art outside of the types of things they've already engaged with, which is a problem when the purpose of art is to get you to engage with things you haven't engaged with before.
Well, hold on. You had me until there. I don't know if that's the purpose of art, but.
Well, okay. Would you agree it's one of the purposes?
It really depends. Like maybe for some art types, but I don't think that's necessarily the case for everything. I think there's definitely a lot of art that does want to do that, but there's also a lot of art that just like, I don't know, here's like just something really familiar that's really nice and good. But I do agree with the overall idea that like you tend towards what you know, what's familiar. And the perfect example for me is actually Arcane. When I first heard about Arcane, it was on Drinker. I saw a Drinker video.
Oh, no.
That much.
You cut out
because I'm a racist, sexist.
Sorry, you
I was
cut
just
out.
saying.
You said you heard about it on Drinker, but you didn't think it was your thing, and we're going to say why.
Okay, yeah. So because Yeah, I'm generally not all that interested in like stuff where like the main character is like an action hero woman. Um, and so and yeah, just like like maybe it's good. I don't know. Not really my thing. And then he was talking about. I'm like, well, okay. There seems to be a lot of character stuff in this that actually seems pretty interesting. And eventually, I watched the EFAP where they basically like spoiled everything, but they talked about it in detail, and I was like, this is really interesting. Like I don't know, and like the whole thing of like, okay, you've got like, actually the whole every single aspect of Arcane would be like, why would I ever watch this? Like you've got like a story about like the rich upper class versus the like the poor people, and it's got like like this whole thing of like yeah, that could that I don't know, it has all of the like it has certain things that you'd look at that and you'd be like, is this gonna be like a woke thing? I don't know, and it turns out that no, it's really well written and it's really interesting. Um, and like watching the EFAP of it made me really want to watch it, and eventually I did. And even though like the genre, I don't even know what the genre is. Oh, and also the fact that it's League of Legends. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. But then it turns out that yeah, like you just like well-written stuff usually. It doesn't always matter a whole lot what it is. If something's well written, it can be really unique.
If I'm remembering, I think like was it the first two or the first three episodes that we did together was actually your first time watching Arcane, if I remember correctly. And then you watched them all like on the off time between a couple of the episodes.
Oh, I think you're right. I think that was the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and like there's stuff like I've seen where it's been like this doesn't look good, and then like someone has said no, this is you should watch this, and I've taken it on faith, and it's been worth it. And a lot of times it'll be like I'll see a video on someone will talk about some obscure piece of media, and I'll be like, this is not something I have never heard of this piece. I look at it and like I'm not even sure I'd want to watch this piece, but this piece was apparently good enough for some dude to write a video like an hour long video on why I should watch it. If this piece of art was so good it convinced somebody to do that, it might be worth taking a quick peek. Like what's it? There's like this movie, animated movie, Angel Wing or Angel Dust or something. But some guy had made like an hour thing on it, and so I turned it on and I watched him talk about it for like 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes he was talking about like I can't remember what it was, but he was just talking about how much he loved this film. I'm going to watch it and then I'll come back and hear what you have to say. And it turned out it was a pretty cool movie. Um, it was very sort of I mean, it was very sort of symbolic and metaphoric, but it was very good. And I would have never heard of it unless that person did mention something. And this is part of what I think is going to be a major problem concerning art in the foreseeable future, because most of our recommendations are going to come from like AI recommendations. And what's sort of scary to me about the AI is that the AI is recommending you things based on things it already knows you like. But
Yeah.
but what was specifically very scary about it to me is we don't actually know what those things are. So like Netflix's AI will recommend two movies that seemingly have nothing in common with one another, but the artificial intelligence, the AI in the black box somewhere is like, no, these two have a connection, and we have no idea what that connection is, but it's found some sort of connection and some sort of connection with predictive ability. Like these two movies that have nothing to do with each other have no similarities as far as we can tell. We know that that person who likes this one movie will almost certainly like this other movie, and we don't know why it is.
And but the thing is like most of the time that really like isn't gonna work because well I mean like maybe for like normal people it does, but for weird people like us like for myself like I noticed at one point like hey I really like psychological thrillers if you can if that's the genre like
Mm-hmm. No, you're.
Like interesting movies with like a plot twist in them.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Oh, you cut
Okay,
out.
yeah,
We got
and
interesting movies with a plot twist, psychological thrillers.
yeah. Um, and then I remember like trying to watch some of them. I was looking for a bunch, and over the course of like a few years, like I've watched a lot of different kinds of these movies, and like some of them are just so garbage. And like Saw, for example, like I watched Saw 6 a couple days ago because they were covering it on EFAP, and I'm like, well, I kind of want to see Saw X. I've never seen the Saw movies before. These seem horrible, but let me try watching this one, see what I think. And Saw 6 is the best of the Saw movies, but it's a pretty bad movie overall. And I'm like, I should like this. Like there's stuff I like in this and I enjoyed watching it, but like I don't really like it overall and I would hate all of the other ones. And even though it's the genre that I like and um the AI would tell me, "Hey, you should watch this." I'd be like, "No, this ain't it. This doesn't have the interesting and effort put into the writing and stuff that really is what I'm looking for." So
Well, part of it.
AI doesn't know that.
Well, so here's the thing. The issue with any sort of analysis of the AI on these sorts of systems is we don't actually know the categories that they're using to figure out what you will and will not like.
Hmm.
We use genres because it communicates a handful of ideas very quickly. I would say it's compressed language, right? Instead of giving like a very detailed description of what this sort of series is like, we compress that sort of down into these smaller words to give you like this sort of basic idea. Where the AI, I don't think they're really doing that. What from my understanding, and I mean I'm not an AI expert, so I could be wrong, but my understanding is instead of bothering with things like categories at all, they just market things to based off of like individual connections. So, for example, you have a particular taste preference, and so there's a handful of movies you like and a handful of movies you don't like, and then they would look at, and let's say it's a small number, like let's say there are, you know, 1,000 people in the world with similar taste, and I think probably, if I'm being honest, I think probably it's a higher amount than you would think. I think there's a lot of people who have similar taste preferences to you. And
Oh
so,
yeah, I'm sure. Sure.
right? And so what they're doing, what's really happening is like these people like the same sorts of movies as you. Did they like this movie? Yes or no? If these people who have similar tastes to you like this movie, they will recommend this movie. If they don't, so for example, the AI might have sent you the Saw movie and you watching like this is dog shit. And they say, okay, now all these people with similar patterns to Andrew, we will not recommend them the Saw movie because he didn't like it and they will probably not like it. And so they have like these alternative sort of pseudo genres based on sort of highly specific tastes and stories and styles of art as you've liked previously. And so while you might even think you're getting a diverse grouping of art, it's actually all linked in some way that you just don't really understand.
Right.
Like, I mean, so here's just an example offhand. Let's say you are like the sort of like you're a big EFAP watcher, right? You like these stories, these characterizations, these everything makes this logical, coherent sense, and you follow and you like this good story, right? You're probably not going to get recommended an absurdist film then. Right? Because an absurdist film does the exact opposite of all these things. It doesn't make sense purposefully. Right? The dialogue it can it generally a lot sometimes can be entirely gibberish. And so it's right, it could be entirely gibberish, the plot goes nowhere, nothing really happens. But that's part of the artistic style, and there's reasons for why it is, and you can still get like interesting pieces from it. But it might just say like this is so far removed. Like if EFAP couldn't I guess they could, but they wouldn't have. I don't think they would have a ton to say about an absurdist film because it's sort of the antithesis to sort of objectivist critique, right? There is no attempt to make things coherent. It's explicitly designed to be incoherent. People who do like these sorts of coherent story, like these EFAP praise style stories that are like coherent, they're well put together, like all these different sorts of things, would not like an absurdist film because it sort of deviates so strongly from like a personal aesthetic. And so I wonder if, like, while we think we're watching like a diverse grouping of different artistic films, like even on the YouTube stuff, I wonder, like, because these people make these hour-long videos, and so I watch it, but I wonder if there's like a ton of other films that also have instilled such passion in people that they've also made hour-long presentations that I just haven't seen because it wasn't recommended to me by the algorithm. Right? Like we did like an hour-long presentation on Primer. It's not like we had thousands of people come and see it. So it worries me a little bit, and I wonder about it. Right? And I had never heard of Primer before you told me about it. Right? This would have been a movie I just would have never seen if it just so happened that you hadn't recommended it to me.
Yeah.
And so
Dang. So what do we do about that? Do we just? I mean, I guess we're just not. I guess you can't watch them all in the end. I don't know. Interesting.
can't. If I were to think of like a solution, I think there's probably a couple things you can do. This is what's it what would be the change you seek, right? Like EFAP, I think is decent. Like they spent a lot of time criticizing all these movies, but then they found a good one, and so they brought it to everyone's attention. Here's Arcane. You wouldn't have heard about it if it wasn't for EFAP, right? And so I think if you're going to, one thing we could do is, like, if you find a good piece of media, you should say something and try to let other people know about it as best you can, right? I wouldn't have seen Primer, but you did recommend it, and then we did watch it. That's part of what I think is good about how we've sort of styled our review show that never comes out anymore because it's too much goddamn editing. But like, I'll pick a movie, and then that's the movie we're doing, so you have to sit down and watch it. And you'll pick a movie, and that's the movie we're doing, so I got to sit down and watch it. And it might be going in, I won't like it. And it might be going in, you won't like it, but we're doing it for the show, so we have to sit there and watch it. And turns out, you know, sometimes we discover there's some movies we like that we hadn't even really considered before. So I think part of it is, you know, traditional good old word of mouth. You know, do if you find good art, share it with people, I guess. Be the sort of the change you seek. If everyone's watching the same sorts of stuff, head in and try and get them to watch something a bit different. And then I think too, probably is try to be aware of your biases and be a bit more open-minded. Right? Like, I don't want to watch mech animes. Probably the ones I have watched have all been really good. We watch an episode. And just like make an attempt.
You know, I don't think I think some piece of art generally has to earn its place. You know, I don't think the viewer has like a responsibility to seek out such or such. I think it's up to the art to find you somehow, you know. It has to prove itself worthy in a sense.
I can sort of
Like
see what you're
it's an
saying.
object that's there for people. It's not something that people have to have some kind of like obligation towards.
I can sort of see what you're saying. Like, I mean theoretically, even if we go with the extreme example, if you're some guy who actually does just watch The Office, starts at the beginning, gets to the end, and then just restarts it, and that's all they watch ever, the only art they consume, Like I guess it's not unethical to do, right? I guess he's not really hurting anyone. Right? He's not like this awful degenerate person, I guess. But I think I will make a positive claim that you should attempt to engage with art. I think engaging with art and different sorts of arts is good from like a sort of health perspective. I think it's good for you. I think engaging in these sort of empathetic exercises and understanding different perspectives and having helps make you a more well-rounded person. Right? I think there are benefits on sort of a I guess an ethereal level to engaging with art. And I think I will also. I'm pretty confident in that claim. I'll make that claim. I think as well, if we agree that, or if we start from the logic point that consuming art has benefits for you, then you should make a good attempt. Then diversity of art consumed, we can probably reason is good for you as well. And if we reason that point, then I think we can then make the jump that from like a virtue ethics perspective, right? That you should, right, the sort of treat your body as a temple sort of virtuous aesthetic, that you should engage with a diversity of art because it is beneficial for you. Like this is, I think I can make a positive claim that the engaging with the diversity of art is a beneficial, and because of that, it is virtuous to do. In the same way, in the same way as properly cooking and preparing healthy meals is better than going to McDonald's all the time. Like you can go to McDonald's all the time, and you're not acting unethically, I guess, right? You're not like this awful person. But I think I can reasonably make the claim you shouldn't go to McDonald's all the time. And I think if we are going to, and I think I'm as someone who likes virtue ethics as sort of a concept, I think I might even be able to say it is a morally virtuous thing to prepare and eat, prepare and make and eat healthy foods that benefit your body. So I think through the same sort of line of logic, I can make a positive claim that you should try to consume different forms of art.
I think that doesn't follow. I think what follows is you should try to consume good art, like the equivalent of more of healthy art, and like obviously like the diverse aspect of comes into play in like health. So that there's a connection there for sure, but
I would
I think
I would concede a little bit, and then maybe move it a bit of it. So I'll consume if you watch a diversity of really bad art, that's probably not good, right? If I go to McDonald's on Monday, Burger King Tuesday, or like just different fast food places every day, that's probably bad. But on the other hand, right, my counter is going to be, salad is good for you. If you eat nothing but salad, it's no longer good for you. So I would probably say you need a diversity of good food, like you need a diversity of good artistic engagement.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Which is why the Subway diet's so great. It's balanced. You have your meats, your vegetables, your proteins, your grains, and all it costs you is that that you molest children. So it's a real great benefit. Thank you, Jared Fogle.
Wait, what? That escalated.
Are you not familiar with Jared Fogle?
No, I'm not.
So he was the
This-
spokesman for Subway, and specifically the Subway diet, because he used to be a morbidly obese guy, and then he ate nothing but
Okay.
Subway, and he lost weight. The downside is he was also raping children.
Yikes.
Yeah, he's not the
Yikes.
spokesperson anymore. He's in prison now. But yeah, that's the downside of the Subway diet. But yeah, I think I can make a moral claim that one ought to consume good art and a diversity of good art. And then the amount is going to then we get into sort of a subjective measure of how much should one consume, how diverse does it necessarily need to be, right? Like maybe if some small tribe in Africa, Theo, but actually it is good art and it's kind of interesting in various ways. Maybe you're not required to go I think probably at that point though we are getting into a subjective analysis of a person's individual life, and kind of you're the only person who can really do that analysis for yourself. You can get outside advice, but ultimately you're responsible for you, But yeah, that was episode 8 of Arcane, and a long conversation about consuming art.
Yeah, very interesting stuff.
Yes, I've been Max Gang. You can find all my stuff at maxgang.com. I've been here with Andrew, who has a YouTube channel. It's linked in the description. You can go see it. Air Obscura is on stream. You can go buy it. He's even got a novella you can go buy as well. So, yeah, if you want to check out any of those stuff, feel free. Links are in the description. Go nuts. Is there anything you wanted to show or talk about before we end the stream, Andrew?
Not at the moment, but I might have something next time.
All right. Ooh. I wonder what it could be. Secret. Keep on the edge of your seats.
Yeah.
But it has been a wonderful time. I've had so much fun watching and analyzing this great show. I can't wait for next week when we finally get to episode 9.
Yes.
And we will
we will learn all about the fish.
Yes, remember, silk sharks. This is the most important thing. Since episode 1 of this analysis stream, we have done nothing but talk about how much every episode Silco loves sharks. It's very important. You have to remember. But we probably won't find that out next stream. Probably the second or third stream after this. But until then, I've been Max. This has been Andrew. This has been Arcane. And until next time, fuck off.